Shalom, Apostle Taha coming back at you with the truth, giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakah Kodash. And I'm going to entitle this, In Their Right Hand or In Their Foreheads. If you've been watching Great Millstone videos, you see a lot of videos dealing with the mark of the beast, which is definitely the microchip technology that the beast system is about to introduce to the world in a oikomany sense, meaning the whole planet. So the majority of the people on Earth will receive this mark. When we do these videos, we mostly go on this deal with the subject of a chip being put in your hand, and we just briefly mention the fact that they're going to put a chip in your forehead. And I'm going to read a couple of scriptures, but before I do that, I'm going to go to this article. As soon as it comes up, I'll read it. That's Satan messing with the system. As soon as it comes, here it is right here. Okay, let me. Okay, it says here, this is from RT News. It says the title of this article is Brain Hacking and Memory Black Market. Cybersecurity experts warn of imminent risk of neural implants. Now, if you look up the word neural implants, it says neural implants are technical systems that are mainly used to stimulate parts and structures of the nervous system with the aid of implanted electrical circuitry, or record the electrical activity of nerve cells. So most of the people that's going to accept this chip are going to receive it in their hand. You would have some that will receive it in their hand and in their forehead. The ones that receive the chip in their forehead are people that may be suffering from some neurological disorder, and that's what's going to make a lot of people freely and openly accept this chip in their forehead. And then the part of the forehead, well, the scriptures say in the forehead. It doesn't say on the forehead. So you're not going to see something, like a dot on your head, and then you're going to say, well, that person got the chip. It's going to be put in the forehead. And what's in your forehead? Your brain. What part of the brain? The cerebral. Let me bring it up. So I can actually read it to you. Anytime we do a show that the computer all of a sudden slows down, you know, because you know, guess who the prince of the power of the air is right now? Esau. I'm trying to bring this up. Yeah, this devil, they don't want this truth to come out. They do not want this truth to come out. And while this thing is loading up, you know, you have a lot of Israelite groups out there, and you notice that the different groups teach different things. Like when you deal with the surface, you know, the basic of the scriptures, we all pretty much teach the same thing. Now you have a bunch of guys, and some that even broke off or got kicked out of a great millstone, that have abandoned the 12 tribe sign. So there's an attack on the 12 tribe sign, which the 12 tribe sign is mentioned in Ezekiel 37 chapter. You have some that teach that Babylon is not America. You have some that teach that well, you have some that teach that, you know, Esau is not the white man. So and then you always have these people that make comments, why can't we all just come together? Well, that would be confusing. Anybody that makes that statement is not deep in its truth. They're very shallow-minded people. They don't know what's going on. Anyway, I went to cerebral cortex, which is when you go to the forehead, beyond, you know, beyond your skin, there's a skull, and then behind the skull is the brain, the front part of the brain, which is called the cerebral cortex. So when they put that microchip inside of your brain, of the cerebral cortex, that function deals with the nervous system. And if, let's say, you're quadriplegic, if I said it right, I hope I said that word right. Let's say you have a arm, you injured your arm in an accident, you can't lift your arm. Well, through this chip, they can make it where you can move that arm. Or like I said early in the video, if you have brain disorder, you know, Alzheimer or disease or MS, and I know somebody that has MS, and they have to, you know, walk around with a walker, and they can't speak that well, and through the years it gets worse and worse. So now there'll be a time where they'll put the chip in your brain, and all of a sudden a person that had trouble standing up or walking with a walker and having these shakes, all of a sudden, once the chip is put inside your cerebral cortex or your forehead, all of a sudden you can walk normally, you can speak normally, you can think normally. And this is why the scriptures say in your right hand or in your forehead. Now the right hand is for what? The right hand is for paying bills, opening the door, unlocking the lock on your door when you go to your house. If you go to your car, unlocking the door by waving your right hand, or in Europe is your left hand, to open the car door and even to start the car. So no one can steal your car because the keys are in your right hand or your left hand, which is that chip. And like I said, the chip that's put inside of your forehead, which is the cerebral or cortex, is for motor skills and reversing the MS or these neurological disorders. So epilepsy is another one. So when they actually push it out there, they don't have to put a gun to your head to accept it, because people that have neurological disorders will accept that microchip in their brain, in particular the cerebral cortex, in order for them to walk and to not shake and to think better. So now let me go back to this article. And these cable companies, they slow the internet down at certain hours too. So let me wait till this comes back up. Okay, this is brain hacking and memory black market. Cybersecurity experts warn of imminent risk of neural implants, which is the mark of the beast in your forehead. Okay, it says the human brain may become the next frontier in hacking. Cybersecurity researchers have warned in a paper outline the vulnerabilities of neural implant technologies that can potentially expose and compromise our consciousness, meaning the mind. That's that the implant or that chip in your forehead. While basic brain implants are already here, current science indicates we are on the brink of mastering the chemistry of memory. Deep brain stimulation, DBS, therapy involves implanting a device. That's the chip. That's the chip. That's the mark into the body to send electrical. And you can't put this in your shoulder. You would put it in your hand. You would put it either your right hand or your left hand, and or inside of your forehead, which means your brain, the brain itself. It says a device into the body to send electrical pulses to electrodes specifically placed to treat neurological diseases or disorders like Parkinson's, MS, Parkinson's, memory implants, and the implant is the actual chip, the mark the charagma, like those featured in dystopia TV series Black Mirror. Well, I gotta check that out. Find out where you can catch that channel. Black Mirror will most likely be built on existing DBS, which is deep brain stimulation architecture. Kaspersky Labs collaborated with Oxford University to test these systems for security flaws before we start linking our consciousness, meaning putting the actual chip, the microchip in your brain, to them, and their report is quite illuminating. So I mean, you can further read into this, and that's just one article. So now I'm going to go into the scriptures. Let me just let this come up. Yeah, so there's going to be a time when they actually really push this and you make this mainstream, that these individuals that are in the various Israelite groups, they're going to consider whether that's the mark of the beast, because a lot of these different Israelites in these various groups, they've been watching our videos. You know, a video pop up with a particular title that catches your eye, you're going to watch that video, and these individuals that follow other camps that teach that the mark of the beast is not the chip, when they actually make this thing mandatory and they push this thing out there, you're going to have a lot of these individuals bugging out, not knowing where to turn. Anyway, this is Revelation 13 verse 16, which we already know these scriptures. But I'm gonna click on the word, go into the word forehead. Anyway, Revelation 13 verse 16, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, and the all is talking about all men, which means men and women. When you go to the 17th verse, it says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark, and the word there is charagma. And that's why in the beginning of this video I said the mark of the beast is definitely the microchip. And when it comes to pass, when they really push this chip technology on the masses of the people around the globe, then you shall know that there has been a prophet among you, or prophets among you. And we strongly believe that we are the prophets, because no group is teaching like we're teaching. You have Israelite groups out there that teach that the mark of the beast is not the microchip, like IUIC and ISCPK, and then you have other groups that teach that the mark of the beast is the microchip. The House of David teaches that the mark of the beast is a microchip. GOCC teaches that the mark of the beast is the microchip. But do they push it? Do they push it? They might have did a video on it several years ago, or they might have taken that video down. And it seems like these other groups outside of Great Millstone that push the mark of the beast, they'll put up a video, but then they'll take it down. So do they really believe that the mark of the beast is the microchip? It says free or bond to receive a mark, and the word mark is charagma, in their right hand or in their foreheads. And the word forehead is G3359. There goes this goddamn computer moving slow as molasses in the wintertime. See, these devils, really the Most High gave us this technology, and these devils have control over it, and they're trying to control what we can do. And this truth is coming out. You know, people are no longer watching MSM, which is the mainstream media. They're watching alternative media, mainly on YouTube and other internet pages. There, at one time, they had, or they still do, they have, you can tweet, and now if you say certain things, the people behind Twitter, they'll take the statement down, or they'll drop your account. So there was another something similar to Twitter called Gab, and when that was put up, they took it down. So now Gab is dealing with they're going to work outside of the U.S. so they can't be hacked or taken down, because it's the super elite that don't want this. They don't want this truth to come out. Anyway, the word there for forehead is metapon. And metapon, as soon as this thing comes up, fucking computer, bullshit. The word metapon means the space between the eyes and the forehead. So when you go in between the eyes at the forehead, the upper part of the forehead, that's where your cerebral cortex is located. And like I said, that deals with motor skills and neurons and your nervous system from your brain. Like if you touch something hot with your finger, it sends a message to your brain saying it's hot. Pull your hand away. So let me come back. I'm going to read the rest of these scriptures. And if you can't see this, guess what? The Most High is not dealing with you. Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai is not dealing with you. Point blank, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. And this is why we claim that we have 100% truth, because you really don't have the truth if you have 90% truth. That's not. What about the 10%? The 10% is a lie. that makes everything that you teach a lie. Even though you teach some truth, like Esau, the elite, what they do is they give you lies and truth. They hide the lie and the truth. They'll tell you a truth and then they'll lie to you. And let me just bring this back up and read the rest of these scriptures. And like I said, when you read, for the ones of you that are new to these videos, I'm not talking about the men of Great Millstone that been in this thing for 9, 10, 11 years, going on 12 years. They already know this. They don't even have to see this video. They may see it. But like I said, we mostly deal with that hand, the right hand. But we just basically we'll mention the forehead, and then we'll keep moving. Anyway, okay, I read Revelation 13 verse 16. Make sure you read the 17th verse, because the 17th verse, they'll read the 16th verse to you and they'll tell you that it's corporation, it's embargo, it's Christianity. It's not talking about an actual individual. Well, when you read the 17th verse, it mentions a man. When it says man, it's referring to man or woman and children. And children are going to receive this mark. Now it says here in Revelation 14 verse 9, it says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark. What did it say? It said, if any man worship the beast. Now who is the beast, or what is the beast? And his image. And who is the image, or what is the image? And it's not Cesare Borgia. And receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand. And as you read on, it says, matter of fact, let me go to this 10th verse. It says, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. Now that cup that Esau is going to drink in Jeremiah the 49th chapter, it was around the 10th verse. Well, you're gonna drink you're gonna drink from that cup that was meant for Esau. So 2/3 of Israel is going to drink from the same cup that Esau is going to drink from. It says, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. The Lamb represents Yahushua, because he was the sacrificial lamb for the children of Israel, and he's going to be in a gigantic ship along with the angels. It says in Matthew 24, from one end of heaven to the other. So the angels, which are without number, they're going to come down to destroy this system, Babylon the Great. It says in 11th verse, and the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. And that's that microchip, whether you receive it in your forehead, which is the cerebral cortex, or your right hand or your left hand. And they're not going to put it in your butt cheek. You know, that's stupid. And like I said, when this thing happens, and it will happen, then you shall know that there have been a prophet or prophets among you. It also says in Matthew 24, if it was possible, they would deceive the very elect. So if you're of the elect, you're not going to be deceived. You're not going to follow a group that teaches that Edomites are going to make it. Seems like the computer's speeding up a little bit. And then it slowed back down again. Okay, so we're back at the okay, we read Revelation 13 verse 16. I also read the 17 verse. It tells you that any man that received the mark we just finished reading Revelation 14 verse 9. Okay, the last scripture is Revelation 20 verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of the Most High, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads. That's that chip in your cerebral cortex, which is right behind the forehead, or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years. But anyway, with that, I'm gonna say Shalom. And we're almost out of here, man, because the next big event will be that before anything happens, before any major, before this destruction of Babylon and this system comes to pass, the mark of the beast would scriptures would have to be fulfilled.
Shalom, Kohalal Yahweh Bashim Avashai Bahashim Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers, the Yakim that are doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so. To the confusion-faced brothers that are joining to our ranks. You know, to the hopefully elect, the Akwaf that are listening and learning. To you, I say Shalom. Disclaimer: we are the Hebrew Israelites by blood, by race, by nationality. We are not associated with any black denominated organization. Black is a color and not a race or a bloodline. There is no such thing as black people. There is no such thing as white people. People are different shades of brown, and people are different shades of red. All right. Brown people being melanated people, ignorantly referred to as black in some cases when you're referring to so-called Negroes. And white people being the only and the true red people which are spoken of in the Bible, which are the wicked, which are the Edomites. Hence the term redneck. It is not just their neck. It is their hands, their faces, their legs, their bodies. They are the red people that the Bible speaks of. Native Americans were brown. All right. Especially going back hundreds of years ago. They were very, very dark brown on top of that before they got raped and scattered and everything else that happened to them at the hand of these Edomites. Into the lesson, man. This is a short video clip. You know, as you can see on the title, it's from Dave Hodges, the Common Sense Show, and he speaks about how the purge is now in California, and he says that because I guess California tried to do the exit thing, and he said that the guys who set it up, that they promised that if they couldn't break off from the state and do their own thing from the United States, that they would start this purge process. And you know, so let's just let him speak on it. All right. And then he has the nerve to say that he predicted this. No, the Bible prophesied this. So let's nevertheless, let's let it play.
The purge has come to California. I've been calling for this, and I told you this day was coming. And I said there would be a lot of days like this. But the purge is indeed here. And if you're not familiar with the movie, it's the break from Law and Order, Murder is Allowed. And when I talked about Cal Exit to Paul Preston of Agenda 21 Radio, he said he had embedded sources. He said those embedded sources told him that if they were unable to exit, they being the Jesuits who support Jerry Brown, the George Soros, Bank of China, Mexican consulate, members of the Obama administration, going back to 2016 before the election, the cartels in attendance at these meetings, these embedded sources reported that they offered to start white chaos to kill people that were not of color in public venues. And they said we'll do so in large numbers. I believe what we saw with this California nightclub massacre, which 7 people were shot, is the beginning of the purge. It's the beginning of what Paul and I talked about over 2 years ago, and it is now here. The purge is among us. I predicted it. It looks like it's here, and if you think this is the last, I'd be very careful where you go out in public. That's it for the Common Sense Show. Thank you so much for joining us. We're brought to you by Noble Gold. Do you want your commemorative Trump coin? Why? Because he's put America back to work. He's done a great...
Which is a complete and total lie. We're going to stop it right there. All right? How does Trump put America back to work when over 500 retail stores have 5,000 retail stores closed last year, over that, and even more expected to close this year? All right? And a bunch of shutdowns expected to happen also as the year turns, man. A lot of retailers are going out of business, man. Sears and Kmart are completely shutting down. You know, they're filing Chapter 11, I believe, bankruptcy. And you also have in Chicago, you got 2 gigantic Targets that just shut down as well, right in the heart of the city, both in Jake neighborhoods. They didn't shut down any in the Edomite neighborhoods. All right, even though that one on 115th is kind of on the border between Jake and Esau, but nevertheless, you know, they didn't shut any down up north on their precious north side. They didn't do that. All right, but nevertheless, you know, he said a couple things that I thought were just completely, you know, out of left field. You know, at first he said he predicted this. No, this was predicted by the Lord, man. So he spoke loftily, highly against the Most High. We're gonna get some scriptures now. All right, it says, when the Most High divided the nations their inheritance. This is Deuteronomy 32:8, Salakia. When the Most High divided the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. All right, so everything was set up according to the children of Israel. Why? Because it's all about Israel. All right, point blank, period. The other nations have to take whatever scraps is left behind. Okay. And this is a precept to that. And it says, and have made one blood of all nations, of all men, to dwell on all the face of the earth, and have determined the times before it appointed the bounds of their habitation, man. But that's talking about the blood of the Israelites, man. That ruling nation, that ruling class people. All right? And the Lord's government is going to be set up through the nation of Israel, through the 144,000, which are named in Revelation, the 7th chapter, by tribe. The gates of heaven have the entrance to the gates of heaven are through the Israelites, by the name of the tribes. It has the name of the disciples, letting you know that they were all Israelites, and the name of the 12 tribes of Israel on each gate, man. So where is the other nations involved in that? The other nations are going to be the subjects of rulership. Okay? And he's right. The purge is going to come. But it's not going to come. It's coming because the Lord is going to send it to happen. All right? That's part of the birth pains before America gets wiped off the face of the earth. This is Amos 9 and 8. And it says, behold, the eyes of Yahweh power are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from the face of the earth, saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob, saith Yahweh. All right? So the remnant, the elect of Israel is going to be saved out of this. The elect of Israel. All right? Because there's wicked, and the wicked of Israel, the 2/3 are going to die on this side. They get the blessing on the other side. All right? They don't get to go to the promised land, you know, so to speak. Just as Moses didn't get the crossover. All right? This is 1 Samuel 2, and I'm going to read like verses 1 through 4. And it says, and Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoiceth in Yahweh, my horn is exalted in Yahweh, my mouth is enlarged over mine enemies, because I rejoice in thy salvation. There is none holy as Yahweh, there is none beside thee, neither is there any rock like our power. Talk no more so exceedingly proudly, let no arrogancy come out of your mouth, for Yahweh is the power of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. Not by Dave Hodges of the Common Sense, talking about he predicted something. These Edomites speak loftily against the Lord and against the power, man. It says, the bows of the mighty men are broken, and they that stumble are girded with strength, man. So all your bows are going to be broken, man. Your strength is going to be broken before the Lord, man. All right? I'm going to get 3 more precepts, because the Lord is coming to take down Esau. And he's going to, and just as it says in Ezekiel 25 and 14, it says, by the hand of my people Israel, man. He's going to use them to do it, man. All right? That's the end game. Trying to find Psalms 80, I think it's 89, 86. This is Psalms 86 and 9. All nations whom thou hast made shall come to worship before thee, O Yahweh, and shall glory in thy name. So everyone's going to worship before the Israelites, man, and glory in the name of Yahweh. All right? Psalms, and now let's go, there's a lot of Psalms here today. Let's go to Psalms 2 and 8 to substantiate that. And it says, ask of me, and I will give thee the heathen for thine inheritance. All right? Because he set the bounds of the inheritance of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. All right? Psalms 2 and 8. Ask of me, and I will give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. And thou shalt break them with the rod of iron, and thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. All right? So we're going to rule over them very harshly, because that's that give unto them double, man. All right? Last scripture. Revelation. This is a perfect precept to Psalms 2 and 8. Revelation 2 and 26. All right, I'm going to start at 25. But that which ye have already hold fast till I come. And we're holding fast to this truth, man. Because what's happening in the world and what's happening in the scriptures is lined up with what the men of GMS and the brothers who teach the lifewise doctrine is saying, man. All right. Revelation 2 and 25. But that which ye have already hold fast till I come. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. All right. So the Israelites are going to get to rule over the nations. All right, all through the power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. The Lord set this up, man. All right, he's gonna bring King David. King David is going to sit on the throne yet again. All right, and the Israelites are going to rule over all the nations of the world, man. Point blank, period. Whether you like it or not. So with that, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS. And salutations to all the Akim out there doing the work. Call halal Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Bahashem Rakak Wadash Wa Abad Babal.
Man, we just wanted to let y'all know. Red wave is real. We out here. Whole lot of gang stuff. Y'all know what I'm trying to say first. Maga gang, gang, gang. Talk some real gang time. USA! 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 We gon' be alright. 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 Shout out to Kendrick. Build that wall. 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 So, we at the White House right now. White House. At the White House. We got it. Put the turn around. Hey. And you know what? Obama didn't invite us when he was the damn president. How y'all doing? You
Hey, all right, Shalom. We want to give all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone for teachers, word and truth and sincerity, for ruling well. And salutations to my fellow Akim across the four corners of the globe, preaching in the name of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. It's a brother Gabar Yahweh there again with another quick video. And you saw this 1 minute and 49-second video. I let it play before I commented, and you see this is shit. This is why we still in this captivity, man. This is why we still in this captivity. And this is why 2/3 of Israel are gonna fucking die, man. Hey, the Lord is not having it, man. 2/3 of Israel, and this is why we say, hey, listen, man, we're not out here for black people, for Latino people. We out here for the elect, man. This is why this word is only given to the elect, man. Okay, because you see 2/3 of Israel, you're gonna die, man. You niggas side with the enemy. You niggas, you don't even understand what you're doing, man. You're talking about building a wall. You niggas came over here in fucking cargo slave ships, man. And they give you niggas college. That's literally like one of the first things they gave you so-called Negroes, man. Here in America was college, man. And this is what college does, man. You got the nigga woman jumping up like a wild ape, the nigga man jumping up like a wild ape, and you doing what? Supporting the devil. And then you niggas got the audacity to jump up and down and say you gonna be all right when all hell is being prepared for you, man. All hell is being prepared for you so-called Negroes, West Indians and Haitians, Latinos, all of you, man, because you got a section of so-called Latinos that's just as a hype for Trump as you niggas are, man. Hey, but you niggas are open fucking disgrace, man. You niggas are open fucking disgrace, man. Okay, this is I had a scripture just popped in my head. Man, Salakia, I can't remember right now. I just slipped my mind, man. Hey, but hey, you niggas are champion for your downfall. Yeah, I got it. Why do you have about Shema or Shai? This is Second Esdras, chapter 16. So chapter 16, verse 20, I think it is. It might be 19. This is Second Esdras chapter 16 and 20. I'll start at 17. Woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? The beginning of sorrows and great mourning, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Behold, famines and plagues, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. And that's what's happening right now as we speak. Okay? And these niggas are hopping up and down, talking about they gonna be all right. Talking about build the wall, build the wall. This is why when that DJ Trump goes out in front of you, this is why he's confident, man. Because of niggas like these, man. These niggas are slaves in the man. You see? Look at that shit, man. Hey, everything's a party with you niggas, man. Everything's a party. You don't know you celebrating your own downfall. Yeah, these niggas say they're gonna be all right. But clearly they're not, because all hell is being prepared. Martial law, great famine, starvation. Your college degree ain't gonna help you when all hell breaks loose, man. And we're gonna see how many of you niggas well, these niggas are gonna take the chip, man. These niggas gonna line up at the factories and at the FEMA camps to take them chips, man. Okay, because see, this is why 2/3 of Israel are gonna be destroyed, man. This is what college does to you, man. Now, for you brothers, because I know you got brothers that's in the military or have been in the military, and you can go to school and you can get a check, man. These niggas are going to school and getting debt, man. You know what I'm saying? But the point of the matter is, our people in the world, they go to these different institutions. They go to these institutions and they think that, like, my degree is going to define me. This college is going to help me. Look, this bitch actually look like she's waiting for her savior, which is Trump. They don't believe, you can't tell these niggas about the truth. Hey, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, and break it down in scriptures to these niggas. These niggas are not going to hear it. These niggas are in such a state of delusion that it doesn't make any sense. You got millions of our people from the Northern Kingdom down in South America right now as we speak, marching towards America, thinking that they're going to come up here and get some type of restitution, some type of rest, some type of come up. Meanwhile, Trump is sending thousands of troops. I think it's about 10,000 troops and more to come on the borders of America and Mexico, man. But you niggas while all that's happening, all kinds of destruction is being laid out and set up. Set up. All you doing is feeding this man's pride, okay, and his ego. Meanwhile, he's sitting in the back like I'm gonna kill these niggas, man. Look, these niggas are gonna hop into destruction, man. Look at this shit, man. Look at this shit. Trying to build the wall, man. And then look, the white woman is sitting there. I don't know if she a jig or not. She's sitting there taking video, and you can't believe that. Tell me that they're not telling this nigga behind closed doors like, hey, these niggas are excited to see you. These are a whole bunch of
So we at the White House right now.
They a bunch of homosexual beta male niggas. That's what the college do to you niggas, man. At college turn you niggas into a whole bunch of beta male. These niggas have no idea that they're about to be destroyed, man. They have zero idea that all hell is about to break loose upon them, man. And Trump is not going to be saved. He's not hopping out the window, hopping out the beast to save you niggas. Look, you really believe that you in a state of enjoyment. Well, guess what? You can enjoy it, man, but you're going to be destroyed in it, man. Hey, this is Salakia. This is Isaiah 30:1. Woe to the rebellious children. And these are examples of the rebellious children of Israel, because these are just a bunch of Judites, Benjamites, Levites probably amongst them. He's a bunch of Israelites, man. Woe to the rebellious children, saith Yahweh, that taketh counsel, but not of me, and that cover with the covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin upon sin. And that's what these people are doing. You're covering yourself with the covering of Egypt, man. This is modern day Egypt. Okay? Spiritually, it's Egypt. And you Jakes, you covering yourself with that. You think Trump gonna help you niggas, man? You think when all hell breaks loose, you see how he did your brothers from the so-called Puerto Ricans, the Ephraimites, he threw them niggas paper towels. It was something else that happened. I can't remember, but I know Melania Trump. Oh yeah, when Jake was being separated from their children, so-called Mexicans was being separated from them children in them ICE prisons. She had a jacket on, said she didn't care, and you can't see it. You can't see past it. But you niggas are hopping up and down and excited. Again, this is what college does. That's why college is for the stupid, man. On some real shit, college for the stupid, man. If you're not getting a trade or something like that, something that can build a skill, and majority of these niggas right here, they're not doing that. These niggas got bullshit degrees in fields that's already filled up with people. You're not going to get a trade or something like that you can, that you can actually put to practice. Hey, you stupid, man. And on top of that, college, like I said, college make you dumb, man. They get the Republicans and the Democrats, and they get on these college campuses, and they pull you niggas together. You niggas see your favorite artist with a hat on, and you niggas put the shit on like, make America great again. Nigga, you were slaves in America, man. You still slaves in America, man. Okay? You talking about make America great again. Make America great again. Really, nigga? Wait a minute, man. This is, hey, this is what America was and is for you niggas, man. This, man. Kunta Kinte style, nigga. Chained up. America was never great for you, man. But you niggas walking around talking about make America great again. What? You want to be slaves, man. You trust in Egypt. Here it is right here. It's Isaiah 30 and 12. I was in that same chapter. Let me go down. Isaiah 30 and 12. It says, wherefore thus saith the Holy One of Israel, because ye despise the word and trust in oppression and perverseness and stay thereon. And that's what they're doing. These niggas are trusting in oppression. Everything's a fucking joke. Everything's a celebration with you niggas, man. You don't want to leave here, man. And that's why I said in the last video I did about Africa, you niggas ain't going to Africa, man. It ain't nothing in Africa for you niggas. You want to stay here, man. You trust in oppression. So 2/3 of Israel, you're going to be destroyed here on American soil and abroad because you trust in oppression and perverseness, and you stay there on, man. Look at this nigga, man. This nigga's bugged out. Through. Jake is through. And again, that's why we're not lifting up a prayer and asking the Lord to release you niggas. Fuck you niggas, man. Fuck you niggas, man. Fuck you niggas and you spiggers. Straight up. And if you don't like the words that are coming out of my mouth, you ain't got to watch the videos. You ain't got to watch the video because you know what? This word is only going to go out to the elect. To the elect of Israel, man. You niggas are a fucking disgrace. You an abominable disgrace and you're going to be destroyed, man. A degenerate plant, man. And the Lord didn't create us to be the, here it is, you jumping up and down for an Edomite, man. For an Edomite, man. Somebody that's not of your nationality, that's not of your people, somebody that's going to destroy you, that does not have your best interest, that does not care for you, man. All he wanted to do is to see you destroyed. He never, this dude, DJ Trump, he's a real estate mogul, man. How many of you niggas live in the Trump Towers, man? At any given point? None of you niggas, man. Because he didn't want you there. He said, I don't want to live next to them, and you don't either. Isaiah 30 and 30 and 1 again. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, that cover with the covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk to go down into Egypt, and have not asked at my mouth. It says that walk to go down into Egypt, and that's what you Jews are doing. You're going down into Egypt for help. You ain't seeking. These niggas ain't seeking the Lord, man. They can care less. They talking about build a wall, get excited, you know, party, gang, shit. Look at this shit. And they like, this is the kind of shit Esau likes to see. These dead looking niggas, man. Hey, and hey, man, how about Shem Yahushua destroy 2/3 of you niggas most expediently, man?
I don't know, man. We just wanted to let y'all know. Red wave is real. We out here. Whole lot of gang stuff. Y'all know what I want to say first. Maga gang. Some real gang time. USA!
That's why niggas are going to be destroyed, man. The Lord got a major sacrifice here in Basra, man. That walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. You niggas are trusting in the shadow of Egypt. Okay, look, this dude come out. This dude comes out. This occult personality walks out, man, like these niggas are stupid. These niggas are stupid. Okay? That walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. This guy is the modern day Pharaoh. America is the shadow of Egypt, and that's what you dudes are doing. You people are doing. Okay? Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. And these niggas are, their trust in America is going to be their confusion, man. Look at this nigga, man. Bugged out, man. These people are dead. They're just waiting to die, man. They're just waiting to be destroyed, man. That's why there's another scripture in 2nd Esdras 9:22. I'm just roughly paraphrasing it. Hey, there be some that be born in vain, man. And these people in this room, they're born in vain, man. You probably got a bunch of tares. No, ain't no problem. There's a bunch of niggas and a bunch of tares mixed amongst each other, and they're excited. They're happy as if a good change is gonna come for them, man. Not realizing that Esau is planning mass destruction of you, man. He's gonna mass kill all you, man. Okay? And they're not gonna want to hear, oh, I supported Trump. They don't give a fuck. You still gonna be put down, man. It says, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. For his princes were at Zoan, ambassadors came to Hans. They were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them. And that's right. You all excited for this guy, but he's not going to profit you, man. His people are not going to profit you. And then ultimately you're going to be ashamed. Okay, you doing all of this exciting. Oh, Obama never invited us to the White House. He's not our people either, man. But you niggas didn't know that. You were all excited for that. Okay? You dudes are being mowed down in the street as we speak. Okay, Jakes are being killed in the street by themselves, by each other, as well as by these police officers. Your children are being snatched and being sacrificed to demons. Okay, all your rights are being trampled. We ain't got no rights. Your so-called privileges that you have here in America are being trampled upon as you speak. Okay, but you excited. You excited. It says they were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them. You're excited. These people are excited right now, but they don't know that Esau, Edom, starting off with, I'm speaking to Trump right now, where he's just a puppet. They can't profit you, man. You champion, you all excited for this president. He can't profit you, man. It says they were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them, nor be in help, nor profit. So that's another thing. You all are chanting and excited for Trump, for these Edomites, man, but they're not going to profit you, man. Okay? They're not going to help you. When all hell breaks loose, how many of you niggas going to run to the White House and think that you're going to be partying and jumping up and down? And everything's a party with Jake, man. What's up with that? Why you niggas always in a jovial spirit? That mirth spirit is about to be put out, man. Okay? It says, they were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them, nor be in help, nor profit, but a shame and also a reproach. And that's right, man. It says, for the Egyptians shall help in vain. That's right, because when all hell breaks loose, there's nothing going to turn that back. And that's going to be the punishment of the Lord, man. Their help is vain, man. It says, for the Egyptians shall help in vain and to no purpose. Therefore have I cried concerning this. Their strength is to sit still. They're going to sit still when you niggas are being mowed down and chopped up and Durga troopers and martial law sweeping through every city in America, famine, death, and plagues are killing you niggas by the thousands, man. And they just going to stand still. You see what happened in Katrina. You see what happened in Katrina. And the white man did not swoop down and help you niggas. You niggas are talking about where FEMA at. Okay? And the number one person that's going to be destroyed is that black woman, man. That nigga woman, man. And then you beta males right along. These niggas are going to the war. These niggas are going to go to the war. They're going to die. Okay? They're ready. They're ready for the draft, man. They're ready for the draft, man. And don't think just because you got a college degree, you're going to be somebody's officer, man. No. Your ass going to be Operation Get Behind the Darkies, man. He going to send your ass up there first, man. Okay? Real talk. Real talk. It says, they were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them, nor be a help, nor profit, but ashamed and also of reproach. The burden of the beasts of the south into the land of trouble and anguish, from whence come the young and old lion, the viper, the fiery flying serpent. All of that, man. That flying serpent. That's the nuclear missiles. They will carry their riches upon the shoulders of the young asses, and on their treasures upon the bunches of camels, to a people that shall not profit them. Yeah, they give all they can to them, man. Especially now in this day, you're giving that what's symbolic of the gold and the silver on those camels is your support. Is your support, man. Okay, this is why they're not budged. They're not these political parties don't give a fuck about you, man. Okay? You're talking about some USA, build a wall, gang shit, magnet shit. Hey, this is why niggas like Kanye West, they set up niggas like Kanye West. They gave him an audience. Why? Because you niggas are fucking impressionable, man. You'll follow anything, man. You'll follow any talking about some Kendrick Lamar, which he's another sellout. We gonna be all right. You think? Turn up. Turn up. This is Ecclesiastes. Oh man, Jeremiah. Let me get Jeremiah 4:22. For my people is foolish. They have not known me. They are sottish children. They have none understanding. They are all wise to do evil, but to do good, they have no knowledge, man. These niggas are wise to do evil, but to do good, they have no knowledge. These niggas are stupid. These niggas are stupid. If they knew the policies that were set up to destroy them and kill them, hey, they'd probably be with it anyway. But still, nonetheless, man, if they knew the policies that were set up to destroy them, man, they would think. Some of these people probably would try to think twice about it. Turn up. Well, you niggas gonna turn up in the fire. You niggas gonna turn up dead. You niggas gonna turn up starving. You niggas gonna turn up destroyed. Ecclesiastes 10:6. Folly is set in great dignity, and a rich sit in low place. I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. That's right. You over here jumping up and down for your servant. While you a prince, you walking low on the earth, man. College, you in college and what, nigga? The fuck that's going to do? You leaving there with hundreds of $1,000s of debt. You're not getting paid to be there. Okay? You're being destroyed. You're being sold a lie. They're not telling you that you're the Israelites. Here it is. The true masters of the earth, you men of Israel, you princes, you're jumping up and down for the servant, which is Esau. Talking about some turn up, man. Hey, man, may Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai destroy you niggas swiftly, man. Hey, this is Luke. Because, see, the white man knows the deal, man. Especially the elite. They know. This is Luke 16:8. And the Lord commanded the unjust steward and the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And the children of light are the Israelites, us Israelites. But the children of this world, Esau, Edom, chiefly, they're wiser than you in this generation, man. Because they know what's happening. They know what's going to happen, man. And you niggas are nothing more. These niggas are nothing more than a symbol of Jake. Because even if you're not with Trump, man, you still concerned with folly, man, and bullshit, man. Meanwhile, the men of the Lord out here, we're out here preaching the word to you, starting off with the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and you're not even trying to hear it, man. You just consumed with folly, man. Talking about make America great again, when in America, this is our experience here in America, man. This is our experience here in America. Okay? Okay? This is your experience here in America, man. Kunta Kinte style, man. Okay? But you niggas are jumping up and down. We've been tortured. We've been disgraced. We've been made a mockery. And you niggas support this shit. You niggas trust in oppression. That shit is unbelievable, man. That shit is not unbelievable because we know Jake is full of shit, man. Let me keep reading. This is Isaiah 37. For the Egyptians shall help in vain and to no purpose. Yeah, they're going to help you in vain and to no purpose. Therefore have I cried concerning this. Their strength is to sit still. Now go, write it before them in a table, which is the Bible, and note it in a book, which is the Bible, that it may be for a time to come forever and ever. That this is a rebellious people, lying children that will not hear the law of the Lord. These niggas will not hear the law of the Lord. They do not care, man. They don't care. They don't give a fuck. These niggas are going to die. The Lord is going to he's going to destroy you. Oh, these niggas are going to be destroyed, man. Okay, it says, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceit. Yeah, they don't want to hear the truth. They just want to hear lies. They're going to prosper. Everything's going to be okay here in America. You ain't got nothing to worry about. You in the right place. Get you out of the way. Turn aside from the path. Cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us. Yeah, don't tell us nothing about no black Jesus, no, don't tell us about the righteous commandments and statutes. We don't want to hear that. Get that out of our face. Wherefore, thus saith the Holy One of Israel, because ye despise the word and trust in oppression. These niggas, they despise the word. And they trust in oppression. They trust in oppression, man. Okay? And this is going to be to their shame. Okay, this is going to play back in their head when they're getting burnt to ashes here in America, man. And we're going to see you niggas are turning up in the fire, man. Turning up, all that other shit, man. Shh. You niggas are dumb, man. Wherefore thus saith the Holy One of Israel, because ye despise the word and trust in oppression and perverseness and stay thereon. Therefore this iniquity shall be to you as a breach ready to fall, swelling out in a high wall, whose breaking cometh suddenly and instant. Because you're going to go from this suddenly all excited and happy and jovial and in the spirit of mirth and supporting America to starving, to dying. And there's not going to be no help for you. You can say, where's FEMA at? Where Trump at? He don't give a fuck about you, man. You are going to die in the most horrific way. Okay? And I hope when it's happening, you in this spirit. Hey, so with that, hey, shalom.
Russian Defense Ministry says the chlorine gas containers have been smuggled into areas controlled by Western-backed White Helmets organization for a false flag chemical attack in Syria's Idlib province.
The Russian Center for Reconciliation of Opposing Sides in Syria has information that on October 27, the terrorists transferred 20 containers with 10 liters of chlorine.
Igor Konashenko said the terrorists and members of the White Helmets organization have tried to lure people into taking part in a fake video in exchange for food. Russia and Syria have both presented the United Nations with evidence that armed groups want to blame Damascus for a false flag chemical attack to try to pave the way for the U.S. and its to attack Syria. The U.S. has accused Syria of attacking civilians with chemical weapons in the past. Damascus has strongly denied any involvement in those cases, saying attacks had been carried out by militants to slow Syria's progress in the fight against terror. Joining us now out of Ohio is Mr. Gordon Duff, senior editor at Veterans Today. Hello, Mr. Duff. It's a pleasure to have you back in the program. Sir, now, this is not the first time we're hearing about this and that there's actual evidence that supports it. What can you tell us?
There's been actual evidence since 2012. It's been presented to the United Nations Security Council since the Russians took medical evidence there in November 2012. They presented evidence to then Secretary of State Kerry in 2013 when the U.S. was going to attack. The U.S. was forced to admit, and this time it was sarin gas, an attack in Ghouta. We're 5 years into the story. We're 5 years into a deluge of evidence year after year after year that the White Helmets are terrorists, that they're funded by MI6, they're paid by the Saudis, that these chemical weapons are brought in from a number of places, but some of them are brought in directly from Saudi Arabia. Others are brought in from Tbilisi, Georgia, from an American facility, bringing them into Syria, Ukrainian intelligence officers. We've seen this, we've found this in investigations. The other thing which is not spoken of, it's something to remain unspoken, is that all of these chemical weapons, including the recent canisters of chlorine gas, have all been transited through Turkey. Turkey has a significant military and border presence there. Nothing moves without their approval. All of this happens with Erdogan's approval and participation, quite against his own would-be views. So he sits at the table with Iran, and he sits at the table now with the French and the Germans, the Russians as well, and he smuggles the poison gas in at the same time. Takes the payoffs, we suspect, from the Saudis, and it's been going on all this time. Says one thing, does something else. Says one thing, does something else. He's been doing it year after year after year. As far as this situation, Donald Trump has always known these were fake attacks. Obama never took them seriously. He always knew the White Helmets were fully complicit with terrorists. Trump chooses at the orders of Israel and Saudi Arabia, who he's still playing with, no matter who they kill. Do remember that the Washington Post is the enemy of Trump and his henchmen. So killing a Washington Post reporter is not a move against Trump's version of the United States. Now, this is going to go on. There's going to be probably another attack. And the French, who's just sat down at the table with the Russians discussing all of this, will send their planes over with the Americans, with the Israelis, and anyone else who thinks they can survive the S-300 system. That's the only complexity to this, is that pulling this off in the new air defense environment is going to be a lot more colorful. And it might be a time when seeing some planes shot down here, seeing a new sheriff in town, might bring about a new approach toward peace. We can only hope so. But right now, this is the Israelis and Saudis pulling strings on their puppets. And it's not just Trump. Erdogan's fully on board with it as well.
Thank you for joining us and for your contribution to the program. One more time, Mr. Gordon Duff, senior editor at Veterans Today, joining us out of Ohio.
As far as the caravan, which is very dangerous, you see what's been happening. As far as the caravan is concerned, our military is out. We have about 5,008. We'll go up to anywhere between 10 and 15,000 military personnel on top of Border Patrol, ICE, and everybody else at the border.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Wednesday the United States could send as many as 15,000 military troops to the border with Mexico as he continued his hard stance against a caravan of migrants that are fleeing violence and poverty in Central America. Speaking to a partisan crowd in Florida at the first of 11 rallies before next Tuesday's midterm elections, the president said his administration and Republican candidates are for keeping the caravans out.
You saw what happened 2 days ago with the Mexican military and the Mexican police. You saw what happened there. How tough the opposition is. We're tougher than anybody. We're tougher than any force. And we're probably going to have to be.
The first caravan of fewer than 4,000 people was in the southern Mexican city of Juchitán on Wednesday, about 1,400 kilometers from McAllen, Texas. A second, smaller U.S.-bound caravan of about 2,000 people forced its way into Mexico on Monday from Guatemala. It is near the Mexican town of Tapachula.
Thought of in terms of victories a year ago now look like they could very well be victories. And the House is a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of people, and I think we're going to do well in the House also. But I know we're doing well in the Senate, and it looks like we're doing okay in the House. We're going to have to see. There's just so many people. No, not fear-mongering at all. Immigration is a very important subject. The Democrats have let immigration in our country get out of control with their horrible not allowing us to have any votes to get passage. We need Democrat votes to change the immigration laws. They haven't given us any votes, and I actually think that they will. As far as the caravan, which is very dangerous, you see what's been happening. As far as the caravan is concerned, our military is out. We have about 5,008. We'll go up to anywhere between 10 and 15,000 military personnel on top of Border Patrol, ICE, and everybody else at the border. Nobody's coming in. We're not allowing people to come in. If you look at what happened in Mexico 2 days ago, with the roughness of these people in the second caravan that's been forming, and also, frankly, in the first caravan, and now they have one forming in El Salvador, and we are thinking very seriously, immediately stopping aid to those countries, because, frankly, they're doing nothing for the American people. Immigration is a very, very big and very dangerous, a really dangerous topic. And we're not going to allow people to come into our country that don't have the well-being of our country in mind.
Somebody's funding the caravan?
Oh, they'll be here fast. They're trying to get up any way they can. They're trying to get up by train. They're trying to get up by truck and by buses. We're going to be prepared. They're not coming into our country. And one other thing important, we're not doing any releases anymore. We're not going to release and let them never come back to trial. We'll build tent cities, we'll build whatever we have to build in terms of housing, but we're not doing releases. What's been happening over years is they would come in, release them, and they'd never show up for their trial. And we now have 25 or 30 million people in this country illegally because of what's been happening over many years. So we're not going to allow it. It's dangerous, and it's very unfair to our citizens. With that being said, I want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally, and they have to come through merit, a merit system, because we have many companies, as you know, car companies, Foxconn, that does the Apple computers and iPhones. We have many, many companies coming into our country. We need people. We want them to come in, but we want them to come in through merit, and we want them to come in legally.
Do you think somebody's funding a caravan? Do you think anybody's funding a caravan?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
George Soros?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know who, but I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people say yes.
Have you heard from Kanye West?
We get along great. He's a good guy. Say it?
Are you worried that this will cost you suburban districts?
No, I don't think so. Whatever it is, here's the thing. I don't view suburban districts or any other districts. I view the country. Our country has to be safe. And by the way, women, we're doing very well with the women vote because they want security. They want safety. They don't want these people pouring into our country totally unchecked. And when you look at what happened to the Mexican police, and you look at what happened 2 days ago to the Mexican military, it's a dangerous group of people. They're not coming into our country. Thank you.
Why are you attacking Paul Ryan?
Birthright citizenship is a very, very important subject. In my opinion, it's much less complex than people think. I think it says it very loud and clear in the Constitution that you don't have to go through the process of whatever they're talking about. And by the way, this is not a constitutional amendment. You don't need a constitutional amendment for birthright citizenship. I believe that you can have a simple vote in Congress, or it's even possible, in my opinion, this is after meeting with some very talented legal scholars, that you can do it through an executive order. Now, I'd rather do it through Congress because that's permanent, but we can certainly do it through, I really believe we can do it through executive order. One other thing, if President Obama can get DACA approved, if you look at DACA, where he actually said, well, this isn't legal, or this I can't do, but I'll do it anyway, and then he gets a judge to approve it, and it'll ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court, I hope quickly, but certainly if he can do DACA, we can do this by executive order. With that being said, I think Congress will ultimately act, but I may very well do it by executive order. Just so you understand, a person comes in, was never in our country before, has a baby, and now all of a sudden the baby's a United States citizen. And through chain migration and other things, many other people come in through the baby. It's ridiculous. All you have to do is take a look at what Harry Reid said in 1993. And guess what? Before he went insane, he got it right.
Paul Ryan, are you going to blame Paul Ryan? Are you going to blame Paul Ryan if Republicans don't hold the House?
No, I'm not going to blame anybody. I think we're doing well with the House. We're going to have to see. It's a lot of people. I've campaigned for a lot of candidates that were down a little bit, and now they're up. But we're going to see. I think we're going to do well in the House. I think we're doing really extraordinarily well in the Senate.
Have you received a subpoena at all from Robert Mueller? Have you been subpoenaed
No.
at all? No. Do you believe that the Saudis have betrayed you? And what's the plan?
Say it again, what?
Do you believe that the Saudis have betrayed you on Khashoggi? And you plan to use that as leverage?
Not betrayed me, no. I just hope that it all works out. We have a lot of facts. We have a lot of things that we've been looking at. They haven't betrayed me. I mean, maybe they betrayed themselves. We'll have to see how it all turns out.
All right,
Blog
y'all.
Talk Radio.
Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's July 3rd, 2012. You're tuned in to another riveting, informative, and power-packed edition of Revolt of the Plebs. Now in its fifth week, or sixth week. I don't know who keeps track of those things. Anyway, I'm your host, Keith Johnson. And this program is brought to you here each and every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, courtesy of the Ugly Truth Broadcasting Network, the newest kid on the block. This is a call-in show, so those interested in joining into the discussion can do so by dialing in 347-838-8321. And yes, folks, we will have a toll-free number up here in the very near future. We did have one for a while, but we got hacked repeatedly by those nasty people that don't like us out there, so we had to drop that. And I know that cuts down on participants who would otherwise call, but I promise that if you do call, I will bring you up right away, so you don't have to wait and spend a lot of time just listening and watching. Well, most people have unlimited calling time on their phones these days, don't they? I mean, we should have flying cars by now, but I think we at least have unlimited minutes. But anyway, okay. Another important administrative note that I should go over here. We're now broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio as well as Vocast. I believe that's how it's pronounced. So you have two options for listening live, and details on that can be found on the Ugly Truth website, uglytruth.wordpress.com. I'm sure you're all familiar with that one. Just scroll down the front page to the announcement about this program, and you can follow the link. Most of you have already done that already, I would imagine, or you wouldn't be listening right now. Now, folks, we also have a chat room that Mark announced would be part of this Blog Talk Radio program, but it's not too user-friendly. So he suggested that if you want to participate in the chat room, go to the Ugly Truth WordPress account or the web page there, and over on the right-hand side it'll say chat room and a big icon there. So just push that, and you can join into the discussion on the chat room. And we look forward to seeing you there. Okay, let's get down to business. Tomorrow marks a very important day in history. Can you all guess what that is? Of course, tomorrow is July 4th. And exactly 36 years ago to the day, elite Israeli commandos, put that in parentheses, folks, commandos. I think it was George Carlin who said, if it's an Arab, we call them terrorists. If it's an Israeli, we call them commandos. But nevertheless, 36 years ago today, 1976, folks, elite Israeli commandos led a raid on the Entebbe airport in the resource-rich African nation of Uganda, which resulted in the rescue of dozens of hostages, mostly Israeli Jews. Anyway, yeah, this spectacular event has been dramatized in at least a few big-budget Hollywood movies over the years. One was, called The Raid on Entebbe. I remember seeing that. Of course, they don't tell the real story. As you know, Uganda at the time was run by Idi Amin, a man whom our Jewish-controlled media has described as everything from a wife-beater to a cannibal, a blood-drinking cannibal. I think I've heard him being called all those things. Of course, all of Israel's enemies end up being discredited in such ways. These Arab leaders today in these various countries are being portrayed in the same way. He's killing his own people. He's running torture camps. He's kicking dogs. He's biting the heads off little babies. Anyway, he started out as a gullible, naive puppet of the Zionist regime. He was bought off by the Israelis with free gifts, military hardware, all sorts of assistance, all paid for by your tax dollars, I might add. But then Amin eventually wised up. He got schooled by the late, great Muammar Gaddafi. I'm sure that some would disagree with me calling him the late, great Muammar Gaddafi, but nonetheless, he told Amin, listen, he told him in no uncertain terms. He said, listen, basically, you can't trust the Israelis. You can't trust these people. I'm an African, you're an African. Listen, I'll give you the assistance that they're giving you. Just break ties with these Jews. It's going to be big trouble, which he did. And, he did a complete reversal, taking up the Palestinian cause, and even went so far as having most of the Zionists removed from Uganda, or at least he took steps in that direction. And, you're not supposed to do that. The Israelis wouldn't have any problems with him being a cannibal or a wife-beater, but the big thing you do not do is turn your back on the Jews or the Zionists, however you want to call them, folks. I know that you have your special ways of describing them. But things like that, turning your back on the Jews, telling them to go pound sand, that'll lead to false flag events like the hijacking of this Air France flight in Greece. It was bound for Uganda. And the official story is that the operation was carried out exclusively by the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. However, in recent years, we've learned that it was Israel's internal security force, Shin Bet, which infiltrated the PFLP with their own people likely masterminded this whole entire hijacking. And this stuff comes directly from British intelligence files that were released in 2005 and reported by the BBC. And I'll read you some of that. The operation was designed to torpedo the PLO standing in France and to prevent what they see as a growing rapprochement between the PLO and the Americans. And goes on to say that this guy who wrote, it was a British diplomat who wrote this document, citing a source, says, "My contact with the PFLP has had attracted all sorts of wild elements, some of whom had been planted by the Israelis," he reportedly wrote. And the whole thing was, what he says was the work of the PFLP with the help of the Israeli Secret Service, the Shin Bet. So, and this was written back in 1976. So this is one of the important things that happened. And we all know what happened right after that. Maybe you don't. Well, I'll tell you. Amin's regime was so damaged that he ultimately was forced into exile. But not before the Tanzanians, who were fully under control of the Zionists, sent 40,000 troops into Uganda and took that country down. And now, 36 years later, the Ugandan people are truly under the heel of a real brutal dictator, and the resources are being plundered, their futures are being flushed down the toilet, all in a day's work for the Zionists and their faithful lapdogs. So anyway, that's what occurred on July 4th. What else happened? Oh yeah, I almost forgot about another significant event that occurred on July 4th. This one happened 96 years ago, when the Bolshevik Jews killed Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and his entire family. Oh, jeez. Is there one day that we can refer to in history where the Jews haven't committed some atrocity? I mean, now that would be a day to celebrate. I could really get behind celebrating a day like that, but I don't know. I don't know if a day like that exists. Okay, so I didn't miss anything else? Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. July 4th is also the American Independence Day. Not quite sure why it's called that. It's actually a day where fat Americans get drunk, eat too many hot dogs, and set things on fire. I guess it's a good day for Anheuser-Busch, Oscar Mayer, and Red Devil fireworks, but I can't see anything to get too worked up about myself. One thing for sure is that I don't feel very free, not as long as we have these Jewish Zionist albatross hanging around our necks. And you know, folks, it's always going to be this albatross hanging around our necks, so long as there are people who consider the Jews to be the eternal victims of Gentile persecution. As long as there are those who have this guilt complex and this need to atone for alleged atrocities that never occurred or that have been misreported or misrepresented, we're never going to have enough brave people in this nation or this world to stand up against these monsters. And that's what they are, folks, truly. They're monsters. And I've always said that the Jews' weakest link in all of their power structure is Israel itself. And you can go there on a daily basis and point to the atrocities committed by the Israelis against the Palestinian people. You can point to their racism, their hypocrisy, their warmongering. And you can at least get people to take a look at that and put them in sort of like a moral dilemma where they really have to confront seeing these things and trying to excuse them. And, you know, if it was anyone else but the Jews doing these things, you'd have a much easier time getting people to recognize these atrocities. But simply by virtue of these people being Jews, they get a pass. And why? Because most people can't get past their indoctrination. They're convinced that the Jews have been persecuted throughout history, culminating in this one great event, which is known as the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were shoveled into ovens by that evil Adolf Hitler. And my God, we can't ever let this happen again. Never again, never again. You heard Hillary Clinton recently coming saying that we have to stop Iran's nuclear weapons program because we can't afford to have another Holocaust. And this Holocaust narrative is the justification for the state of Israel, despite the fact that it was being planned decades in advance of this so-called atrocity. That is the justification for the creation of Israel. And smashing this myth, this hoax, is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most important things that we can do in ending the Zionist regime. And it must end, ladies and gentlemen. Israel must be wiped off the map. And I mean that literally, folks. Every globe that you see spinning on a teacher's desk and every map that hangs on a classroom wall, that name Israel needs to be wiped off and replaced with the word Palestine. That doesn't mean killing Jews. That means to shame them out of the region. It's an eviction, not an extermination. And the world will never be at peace so long as they occupy that territory. Now these are my views, folks. They may not necessarily be the views of my guest, but I'll tell you one thing. He's certainly a staunch critic of Zionism and Jewish power, and he's done a great job at exposing their crimes as a reporter for American Free Press, where I also write, and as a prolific author whose latest book, The Holocaust Hoax Exposed, is what we'll be discussing on today's program. And I just want to read a little book review by our friend Pete Papaheracles over at American Free Press, and it goes a little something like this. When Victor Thorne offered us his latest book, we expected his unique, truthful treatment of critical issues. Once again, with The Holocaust Hoax Exposed, debunking the 20th century's biggest lie, our expectations have been met, even exceeded. In 25 concise chapters, he demolishes once and for all the Zionist Jewish Holocaust fable. If readers were limited to but one paragraph that reflected the book's essence, the very first on page one would suffice. Quote, "It's the 20th century's most preposterous fairy tale, also known as the Holocaust hoax. Anyone approaching this subject with an open mind should seriously consider using the words of 1 Corinthians 13:11 as their guide. Quote, it's time to put away childish things." So, akin to Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and any other figment of the imagination, the tale of 6 million Jews being exterminated in National Socialist death camps is nothing more than a deceptive ruse. Victor Thorne, welcome to Revolt of the Plebs. It's great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Keith. I appreciate it.
Victor, now you heard my rant, which I open each program with, usually pushing the envelope a little further than most people would. Is there anything you disagree with me on about that, as far as the need to destroy this fable, to get people's minds right?
Well, the only thing I guess I would disagree with is that in America, and tomorrow being the 4th of July, which is one of my favorite days of the year, we have this mind-blowing fireworks demonstration up here that's one of the 3rd or 5th largest in the country, and we go right up to the front row as close as you can get. So I've always loved the 4th of July, and in those terms, like, we are still extremely free in this country, because I hear people saying how all our rights are being taken away from us, but here's this book I wrote, The Holocaust Hoax Exposed, the most taboo subject that there is, and yet a couple of weeks ago I appeared live on a AM radio station down in Tampa and spoke for almost an hour about this subject. Amazon carries the book. If people go to wingtv.net and buy the book, PayPal processes the book under Holocaust Hoax Exposed. Radio, I can do radio interviews. There's reviews at American Free Press. Anywhere on the internet, people can review this book, talk about this book. So, I think that a lot of times we buy into the fear-mongering where, the Holocaust is the greatest conspiracy of the 20th century, but also it's the most suppressed conspiracy, and not only by the mainstream media, but by the Patriot movement. Keith, if you go out here and look at these quote-unquote patriots on Patriot Radio and all the various websites and publications, 99% of the people in this field absolutely refuse to talk about this subject. So if people don't know the importance of this hoax, and we hear, we're going to beat the New World Order. How can you beat the New World Order if you're horrified to even talk about a subject? Why do we need Big Brother when these people in the Patriot movement act as their own Big Brothers? So, that's the thing that's most disturbing, is that, you can't beat the New World Order if people are afraid to even talk about subjects that really form the cornerstone of what this New World Order is today.
Yes, you're right. And, there are how many countries today that have Holocaust denial laws where you're not even allowed, I mean, you can't even say 5,599,999 were killed. I mean, if you challenge the official narrative, I mean, you could be thrown in prison for at least, well, up to or at least 5 years. I'm not sure how that works one way or the other. But you're right, Victor. You know, I think that the reason that a lot of these laws are in place in a lot of these other countries is because if there weren't laws, they'd probably come out. I mean, there'd probably be a lot more people in those countries that'd be brave enough to come out and talk about it. But here in this country, we do our own policing. I mean, of all the news sources that we have out there, the patriot community, the alternative press, should be the one to stand forward and expose this myth. What is it? Is it that fear of being called an anti-Semite? What is it here in America that we are so afraid of?
Well, when it comes to the patriot movement, it's one of two things. It's either A, they're working for the government, or B, that they're so worried about their advertisers that they won't broach these subjects. So, you know, they puff their chest out and they think they're so big and mighty and brave, but really what we're getting from them, Keith, is minor league conspiracy. And if people want to go out there and listen to the minor league stuff, go ahead, listen to it. That's fine. It's a free country, and so be it. But if you want the major league stuff, you have to go to places like this book or Mark's show or American Free Press or the Barnes Review. The Barnes Review, it's this month's issue is at the printer right now, and I have an article in there where a man in Germany ordered this book from me. Mm-hmm. And I put it in a package like I always do and shipped it, and didn't hear anything for 4 or 5 weeks. And then I got an email from this gentleman, and he said that he'd ordered books from America before, never had a problem, that he got a phone call from their version of the post office, and they told him that they wanted him to come down to the customs office. So he went down there, and there his package was, he said, unopened. And they told him, they handed him a knife and said, will you please open this package? He opened it and pulls my book out, and immediately, they took the book into the back room, inspected it for a while, came out, and then they started questioning this man. They wanted his phone number, his address, and I mean, his address was right on the package, but they wanted all this personal information, and finally he said, you know what, you can keep the book. I don't want the book anymore, and he left the office. But so this is in Germany. A man, I guess they can face up to 7 years in prison for possessing this kind of information. And luckily, in America, we can still not only order this kind of material, but discuss it on these radio shows. And instead of being filled with fear like so many of these other radio stations do, where, after listening to them for 3 hours, everybody has to be, hiding underneath their bed. Well, I think we should take the opposite stance and say, I'm not going to live in fear. Instead, I'm going to confront this issue and speak about it openly. So it really goes down to, I wish everybody would ponder this. Do you want to live in minor league fear world, or do you want to stand up, be a man, and face the major league conspiracies of our time? So that's the way I view it.
Right. And, I think it's so important that this myth be exposed to the world. When I first started getting into this thing, I thought, well, this is probably something I should leave well enough alone. Don't even touch it, because, listen, it's easier to just go and point to the daily news about, some of the things that Israel does to the Palestinian people. But if you start opening up this thing about the Holocaust, people are just going to walk away from you. But then, that was before I really started digging into the details of this. And when I did, I started getting angry. I mean, this is a hoax on such an epic scale. Like you say, it is the 20th century's biggest lie. And once people realize that, they can get they can put aside this fear that they have at criticizing the Jews. Because I think that this Holocaust myth is at the very center of the fear that people have, because they look at this, they're so indoctrinated and brainwashed with these images of Adolf Hitler throwing children into these ovens, and that they've actually been able to convince themselves that, yeah, well, I guess the Jews do need a homeland of their own. I guess we need to let them have we should let them have Palestine. just because of that, because of the Holocaust. I mean, let's face it, we've got a lot of people out there in the world today that aren't religious people. And I think that we're creating more atheists on a daily basis. And if you were to tell these people, listen, the whole justification for the creation of Israel is some myth from the Old Testament where they said that God spoke to, these Abraham and said, this land is yours, they'd say, well, that's not a good justification. However, these same atheists will say, well, yeah, but then again, there was the Holocaust, and, they have been persecuted throughout centuries, and we can't allow this to happen again, so maybe this is a good place for them to go. I mean, do you agree that this is at the center of getting people to lose this fear of being an anti-Semite and to be able to criticize Israel more objectively?
Well, to show how important it is, I think there's strong arguments to be made that World War I and World War II both were created to ultimately lead to the creation of Israel. So if we're looking at, I don't know how many tens and tens of millions that died in those two wars, that would certainly make that the most important event of the 20th century and also the most important fabrication of the 20th century. And I've been researching this subject for at least a decade and actually tried to write it once, maybe in 2000, the mid-2000s, write this book. But I didn't have, I was doing so many other things at the time. But anyway, when I finally started writing it a little over a year ago, of course you feel this trepidation because, as I said, this is the major leagues now. This isn't writing about, a little bit of graft or a little bit of money underneath the table or something like that. This is the big leagues. So, of course, I felt some trepidation when approaching it. But when I had all the research together and started writing it, I was amazed that it was one of the easiest books I've ever written. Because once you start picking apart these lies, they crumble like dominoes once you pull the bottom one out. So it was an extremely easy book to write because this lie is so easily disproven. And I speak with this about, to people, and they'll use the same mantra. And it's like it's been indoctrinated into their heads ever since they were school children. And they'll say, oh yeah, but I know someone that was in one of the camps, and they knew people that died, and they even showed me their tattoo. So how could you say there was no Holocaust when that person had all of these things? And I agree with them. I say, well, absolutely there were people in camps. They were called work camps. That's what they were. They weren't extermination centers. They were work camps. And I said, yeah, people did die. I agree with you. People did die. But they didn't die because they were thrown into ovens or exterminated. They died, most of them, during the last few months of the war. And this wasn't only Jews, but this was all the inmates, including Germans, because the supply lines had been cut at the time, and it didn't allow any food or water or medicine or supplies to come in. And I said, and I also agree that they had tattoos. Of course they did, because back in them days they didn't have these fancy little laminated license like we have today. So the Germans that ran these work camps needed a way to identify their workers, so they tattooed them. Now, if the Germans were such efficient killing machines, we're told the most efficient killers in the history of the world, why would they take the time, first of all, to tattoo somebody if they're going to kill them anyway? They want to identify them after they're dead. And, and if it's already been admitted by Jewish Holocaust scholars that no quote-unquote extermination centers existed on German soil. They admit now that the so-called extermination camps existed in foreign countries like Poland and so forth. So let's see now. If we use a little reason and common sense and logic, got to throw a little logic in there. Let's see, the Germans are the most efficient killers ever, but they don't want to kill the Jews on their own soil. So what they want to do, now they're fighting the biggest war in the history of mankind, and the Germans actually want to win this war. So what they're going to do is divert all of these resources and manpower and load people up into trucks or trains and then take them to a foreign country on a train that they have to use fuel, coal or whatever, and then unload them and then corral them into these camps, and then they shear their heads, and they strip all their clothes and their shoes off, because, you know, you see in the museums all the big piles of shoes and everything. And so if they're the most efficient killers, why not just one bullet in the head on German soil? Wouldn't that save a lot of time and effort and manpower and resources? And, you know, Germany lost the war. One of the primary reasons was that they ran out of fuel. They actually had to create synthetic fuel. So they're going to use fuel to cremate all of these people, or use them to fire up the furnaces. It really comes down to Keith, is it doesn't take long to figure out that this entire thing is a lie.
Right, and at first we're told that you know, that they use Zyklon B. Then we're told they used this reasoning for years, that they were dieseled to death, which is another way that, I mean, I don't think can kill people. Then they say gasoline. Have you looked into those claims? What gas was apparently used?
Well, in this book, I recount all of the different death modes that were supposedly used, and some of them were steam chambers, electric currents, pneumatic hammers. That's a good one. One person, and this is documented in the book, said the Jews were killed with atomic bombs. There were also gasoline vans, bone grinding machines, quicklime, blood poisoning stations, and then, of course, Zyklon B. Well, Zyklon B was actually a delousing agent. Zyklon B helped to keep people alive. It didn't kill people.
But another reason was why they shaved their heads, because of the lice and all of the problems that existed in the camps there. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. It was typhus. And there was a major epidemic of typhus throughout not only Germany, but Europe as a whole, because there was a war going on, and conditions weren't real sanitary under those conditions. So not only were their heads sheared, but all the clothes were stripped off, and then the clothes were thrown inside actual delousing chambers where the Zyklon B was introduced, and what it did was it got rid of all the lice and all the bugs that caused the spread of it. So, Fred Leuchter, who was a chemist, went over to Germany went over to Auschwitz, to test these facilities, and he found that in the areas where the Jews said that all of their prisoners were killed, there was absolutely no traces of Zyklon B. But in the delousing chambers where the clothes were, that's where they found the walls caked with Zyklon B. So this proves that this wasn't used. I mean, first of all, it would be virtually impossible to kill that many people with Zyklon B. That's beside the point. But it proved that the Germans were using this to lower the typhus epidemic at the time.
And of course, the pictures that are offered to us as proof that they were killed in mass numbers don't show any evidence, unless you know of any pictures that exist. But I don't believe there are any that exist that shows the condition of a person that would have died of asphyxiation, which means that they would have like a red tint to their skin. Plus, most of them would be nourished. I mean, obviously, they wouldn't, wait to starve them to death and then gas them. I mean, the pictures we see of these dead bodies are people who are emaciated, who have died of starvation. And as you said, this happened towards the end of the war, most of these deaths. But going back to my original point, are there pictures that exist of people that would show that there were evidence of any asphyxiation due to gassing?
There's not one piece of photographic evidence whatsoever, and if there was, I mean, just think of the Germans at the time. Say this actually did transpire, and there was an SS guard at one of these places, and he's thinking into the future. He's thinking, I'm going to smuggle in my Polaroid here. I'm going to smuggle in a camera. And while the Jews are inside these execution chambers, I'm going to snap a couple pictures. And after the war, I'll sell it to the newspapers in London, New York City, all over the world. I'll make tens of thousands, I'll make hundreds of thousands of dollars maybe from having the photographs. Yet, none of these photographs exist. What we do see are photographs not only of these emaciated bodies, which prove that they did die during the last few months of the war when the supply lines were cut, but also a lot of these pictures came from Dresden, which was a real Holocaust that happened when the Allies came in and firebombed this city for days on end. And when you see a lot of these photographs, they're actually of German citizens that died in this real Holocaust, but they're being played off as if they're Jews that died in the Holocaust. So, they use so many sneaky tricks that it's mind-boggling. Like the chimneys that you saw in pictures that were emitting smoke. And they're saying, look at that. That proves that that's the exhaust fume from the bodies being incinerated. Until these museums were confronted with the truth, the real photographs before they were photoshopped, and they had to go in and erase out the smoke that they had photoshopped in there. So, I mean, there's just lie after lie, and once the first lie is overcome by someone, if they have cognitive dissonance, all the rest are a lot easier, because you realize that this never happened the way history books tell us that it happened.
Right. And, the 6 million figure, we could get into that all day, where they came up with that. But demographic records at the time don't even show that there were more than 2 million Jews even living. And we're supposed to believe that 6 million Jews, people need to really put that in perspective. That's like an entire city. Can you imagine that? I mean, you've got police out there that can't even contain a block during a riot. However, the Germans were able to just, coordinate getting people in lines and putting them into these 6 million people. That's like a city the size of Los Angeles or someplace like that. I mean, it's amazing. So, I mean, just that alone. And how many supposed extermination camps were there? I mean, these things would start breaking down after a while. Start sticking 6 million people in them. I mean, it's just a major operation. And then you've got the disposal of the bodies. What is the official narrative? What are we supposed to leave? What would keep us out of prison in Germany? What is the official narrative there of how these bodies were disposed? Were they put into mass graves, or were they burned? And tell me the problems with that.
Yeah. Well, I'll take this two steps. First of all, the numbers. There's a whole chapter in this book, The Holocaust Hoax Exposed, devoted to the numbers. And I cite magazines like Collier's, various authors that have written books, London's Daily Express, there's the World Almanac, the New York Times, and then a publication that was called Information Please. So these aren't conspiracy sources, these are mainstream sources. And they had the Jewish population among all other populations throughout the years, 1937, 38, all the way up until the end of World War II. And from all of these sources, it says that the worldwide Jewish population before World War II was approximately 15 million. Now, this isn't just in Europe, this is worldwide. And we find then, when you look at the population statistics in 1946, 1947, they're still around 15 million. Now, if there were 6 million Jews killed, that's 40%. That's a 40% reduction. Yet every one of these sources still cites them at 15 million. So that there alone should make people scratch their head. Now, when it comes to getting rid of bodies, if you're going to cremate a body, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to do so. Mm-hmm. And the average remains are anywhere from 3 to 9 pounds, depending, of course, on the size of the person. So let's just say we take the even figures. It'd be 5 pounds of ash. Now, obviously, all of them wouldn't have been cremated, but say 6 million that they were cremated, each with 5 pounds of ash. Right there, Keith, we're talking about 30 million pounds of ash. Where is it? Now, we know for a fact that Allied reconnaissance planes were flying all over Europe during World War II. Nobody would dispute that fact. So where are, A, these huge lines of fuel trucks that are lined up at these execution centers? Because if they're going to be running ovens and cremating people, obviously they need tons of fuel, right? Where's the photographs proving? Look, there's 30 trucks right there lined up. There are none. Where are the photographs of mountains of ash when they have to shovel out the ash so they can make room for the next 1,000 Jews that are going to go into the oven? We see no pictures of that. Well, people say, well, maybe they used wood. They didn't have enough fuel, so they used wood. Well, where are the reconnaissance photos of acres and acres and acres of deforestation, where people had to go down and cut all the trees? Where are pictures of the lumber trucks that are bringing them? Then, of course, you have to process the lumber. There's no photographs of that. And, of course, Keith, let's remember, again, I'll reiterate this, that this was the biggest war in the history of mankind. Germany had about 8 million people out, 8 million men out fighting in the field. They were getting everyone from age 16 to their mid-40s, putting boots and a uniform and a gun in their hand and telling them to go out and fight the Allies or the Russians. Everybody of fighting age that was a male in Germany was out fighting. So who's running the war machine? Who's building the planes? Who's making the uniforms? Who's making the bullets and tanks? Somebody has to be there making them. So let's think of something for a while. Germany captures prisoners, Jews and non-Jews. They know that they need workers in their industrial centers to keep the war machine going. This is free labor, right? Because they're captured, they're prisoners. So what are the Germans going to do? Tell these people to go in there and man the presses and feed the war machine, or kill them? The answer is pretty simple. They put these people in work centers so they could keep the German war machine going. That's why people were in these centers. It wasn't to kill them. It was to have them work. It was slave labor. And even sometimes they did get paid with what was called scrip money. But, nonetheless, that's why they were there.
Right. And how about these so-called cremation chambers that were built after the war by the Russians? Do you touch that in your book as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Auschwitz, which we were originally told accounted for 4 million of the supposed 6 million. Yet, from the end of World War II until 10 years later, nobody had access to Auschwitz except for the Russians. And what the Russians did then was they constructed this big smokestack, which even Holocaust historians now admit isn't even attached to anything, but they say that it's symbolic. They completely renovated the work centers. They knocked down walls and so forth to make the rooms appear larger so that obviously more people could have been fit in. And, everything about it was a fabrication. So, there's a man named David Cole, a Jewish man actually, who traveled to Auschwitz in the 90s and was asking questions. He asked the director, Mr. Francis Piper, and also people that helped coordinate the tours. He asked them questions about it, and they answered them truthfully and said, oh yeah, this was changed here. The smokestack was built after the war ended. But we're told in history books that this is just as the Germans left it after World War II. So, at that point we see again, how many lies do we need before people start saying, whoa, maybe these conspiracy theorists aren't crazy after all. Maybe there is something we should examine here.
Yep, and what people will say to us is, okay, you Victor, you and Keith Johnson and a handful of others, you're minor voices, you're a handful of people. However, we have all of these Holocaust survivors who have put out memoirs and do talking tours. Now, do you mean to tell me that all these people have collaborated together to advance this myth? What would you say to something like that?
Well, I don't know if they collaborated together. or not, because But I do know one thing. I devoted a lengthy chapter to all the fake memoirs, and it's Dave Gahary, who runs the American Free Press website, read this book and he said it's almost like reading a comedy, because their stories are so outlandish and so ridiculous that it's a knee slapper. I mean, who needs Jewish comics when you have these memoirs from these supposed survivors? There's a woman named Misha Di Fonseca who said that she escaped from one of these death camps. She went on a 1,900-mile quest. Okay, 1,900 miles, Keith. That along the way she had to kill. Now she was a little girl at this time. Okay, she had to kill an SS officer while she was on this escape. Then she ended up having a love affair with this man who protected her. So then she gets away from him, and then now I'm not making this up, Keith. This is in her memoir. She then says that she goes and lives with a pack of wolves. That the wolves were the ones that protect her, and the wolves fed her. Wolves fed her, and then when there weren't wolves to bring food back, then she ate mud and grass. So wolves are feeding her, and she's the kind of woman that goes on Oprah, and she goes on the talk show circuit, and they talk about this kind of stuff. There's another woman named Irene Zisblatt, and she wrote a book called The Fifth Diamond, where she said that she escaped. Funny how all these people, the Germans are the most efficient killing machines in history, but all these people are escaping. I don't know how that works. I don't see all these, tens of thousands of people escaping from U.S. prisons, but I guess the Germans weren't all that efficient after all. But anyway, she escaped. But before she said her mother had 4 diamonds. Now, her mother somehow smuggled 4 diamonds into one of these death camps, and her mother sewed it into her dress before she was executed, the mother. So she ends up going to Auschwitz, and she has these diamonds in her dress, but she doesn't want the Nazis to find it. So what she does every day, according to Irene, is she swallows the diamonds in the morning, and then they digest through her body, and then at night she defecates the diamonds out. And then the next day she swallows the diamonds again. And this goes on. She's at Auschwitz for 15 months. So every day for 15 months she continues this product. And if I remember correctly, I think diamonds are kind of sharp, aren't they? But there's nothing about her tongue being sliced, or her throat, or her intestines, or her esophagus, or stomach, nothing. And yet, if all of these Germans didn't have enough food, they didn't have enough water, they were dehydrated, how's Irene washing off the diamonds every day to re-swallow them, or is she just swallowing them without them being washed? And so on and on and on. So then she's ready to be thrown into the gas chamber, but she escapes once again, and she climbs over this electric fence, and she ends up in a hospital, and George Patton visits her, and then everybody says, "But Irene, where's the tattoo? I thought everybody had tattoos." But she said her tattoo had been removed after the war. So, pretty good, huh?
Laser surgery, yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah, and so we're expected not to even question any of the official narrative when we have stories like this. And there have been so many other just ridiculous fables that have already been debunked, and even propagated by people like Simon Wiesenthal, this man who's supposed to be the most respected, Nazi hunter, and everything he says is golden. Yet he stood by the story about the Jewish soap. I mean, you remember that one? I mean, here's a story that is just so outlandish, where Jewish bodies were used to make soap, and they actually engraved on the soap itself the initials "Pure Jewish Soap." Apparently, that's a selling point. I guess they would be sold in German boutiques, Victor, or something. And
well, you know what?
These highfalutin Jewish German women would go, "Oh, I can't wait to have some pure Jewish soap." I mean, it really paints a picture of these Germans as these just monstrous. Oh, and then I was also told, no. Well, this was used as soap for the Jews in the camps. Okay, well then why would the Germans put pure Jewish soap on that, just to antagonize them?
Right,
I mean,
right. Would you know that at some of the subsequent trials after World War II, that this soap was actually introduced as evidence?
Yeah, and they also had funeral ceremonies where they would bury bars of soap.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was evidence, and it had to be buried because this contained the bodies or the former life of these Jewish prisoners. And then of course there was also the lampshades and the shrunken heads and all of this stuff that even Jewish Holocaust historians now run away from these stories and they cringe because they've all admitted, they try not to make too much of a hoopla about it, but they've all admitted that no, this isn't true. And the opening epigraph of this book, the opening quote, is from this big liberal phony Noam Chomsky. And I don't remember the exact quote, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, to even question the Holocaust makes you a non-human. In other words, if you question this, you've surrendered your humanity. You're now subhuman to investigate these claims. So, that really puts it into perspective. And Noam Chomsky is such a phony. He's one of the big heroes for the left, but Chomsky was also the guy that refused to tell the truth about 9/11. Not only Israel's involvement, but anything. Noam Chomsky went completely in lockstep with the mainstream media version of events, and so this is the kind of people that they listen to.
Right. And of course, the Nuremberg trials were just a sham, and there was nothing revealed there that points to any mass extermination or gas chambers or anything like that. As a matter of fact, all of those that were hung, if you listen to their last words, they were pretty damn defiant. I mean, they never really came out and said, yes, we committed crimes against humanity. This was really horrible. In retrospect, I may be going before my maker now, and I really need to make amends. There may have been a couple, I can't remember exactly what their quotes were, who kind of said, well, I'm kind of sorry, but they were led to believe that all these things happened.
Right.
They were led by their interrogators to believe that a lot of these things occurred.
Well, the star witness at Nuremberg was a man named Rudolf Hess.
Right.
And it's come out, there's a whole chapter in this book on him also, how he was tortured and had his family, his wife and his children's families' lives threatened before this witch hunt trial. And he said that he was strapped down to tables and beaten mercifully before he testified. And he was the one at the Nuremberg trials that floated for the first time the number 6 million. But it comes to, we came to find out that it was all under severe duress and that nothing he said could be taken in any court of law that would stand in any court of law because it was done under torture. So, again, this is how it all came about.
And how has this become a windfall for the Jewish people as a whole? I mean, this has benefited the Jews on a mass scale. I mean, when it comes to reparations, restitution. Do you go into some of that on how this industry has just become a big moneymaker?
Actually, I didn't. What I could have went in a lot of different directions and branched out from this. And I could have talked about the USS Liberty, any number of things, but I figured to keep it focused, I only looked at the Holocaust per se, but there are men like Norman Finkelstein, who talk about the Holocaust industry. It's a huge moneymaker. Hollywood every year is producing 2, 3, half a dozen movies or TV shows about the Holocaust. And, even in this country, on a smaller scale, that I was talking to a woman a few months ago when this book came out, and she was talking about how her daughter was going on a bus trip to Washington, D.C. I said, oh, that should be great. That should be fun, huh? And she says, well, no, they're going to the Holocaust Museum. And I said, oh, no. So what they do is they corral all these poor kids on the bus, and this woman said that before they went, like in the week leading up to it, the teacher was up there talking about the Holocaust. Maybe I should say indoctrinating them about the Holocaust. And she said the teacher broke down in tears before the class. She was sobbing and just telling the horrible travails that these people went through. So the kids in the class are already traumatized. Then they get thrown in a bus and they go down to this. Yeah, I've never been. I refuse to even go to that museum because I can't allow myself to be in the presence of such evil. But they go inside this museum then, and they're traumatized for another couple hours. So when they come back out, I mean, it's understandable why people are so hesitant to speak about this, because I'm sure the same story applies to hundreds of thousands of kids across the country, that they're being, having their heads filled with the same propaganda. So after being so traumatized, they're like, hell, I'm not saying anything. I'm not speaking out about this. I'm going to accept it as fact, and that's that, and then that's the end of the story.
Right. And, people like you and me will be accused of defaming the dead, but, if you really think about it, we're the ones who are actually trying to we're the ones who are actually trying to respect the dead. These dead Jews there, I'm sure that they would want their real stories to be told. I don't know about you, Victor, but if I died of starvation, which is a much worse way to die, far worse way to die than being gassed, I would want that to be known. And if, let's say, for instance, I was an American working in some foreign country like Uzbekistan or something like that, and my president or people who claimed to be Americans said that they were at war with the people, with the government and the people of Uzbekistan, and that leader of that country decided to put me in a concentration camp, and then America came over here and started bombing all the supply lines, and I died of starvation. And then years from now, people said that I died in that I was killed by the leader of Uzbekistan in a gas chamber. I think I'd be screaming from the grave, no, that's not true. You gosh darn Americans were the ones who killed me. So, if we put that in proper perspective, we're actually the ones who are honoring the dead rather than defaming them.
Well, think about it in another way. Shouldn't the Jews want what we're saying to be true? Because then they'll say, well, thank God, after all, 6 million of our people didn't die.
Right.
That's a good thing. I mean, shouldn't they want what we're saying to be true? Because then that means that their relatives, their ancestors, their fathers, and everybody, they actually didn't die. So it would be a good thing, right? Yet they're fighting. They do want them to be dead. Because that keeps up the victimization, that keeps up the myth, and it's mind-boggling. Like, wouldn't it benefit you or anybody else if you had relatives that supposedly died and you find out no, they weren't horribly killed, they weren't killed, so that means they lived, right? So it's hard to understand that mindset where if we can prove that it never happened, what a tremendous burden has been lifted that their relatives weren't horribly massacred. So it's a good thing, but they don't see it that way.
No. And this they want to keep this story out there, like you say. I mean, every year we've got at least a couple, 2, 3 Holocaust movies or something about World War II that touches on the Holocaust, and they got to keep this alive in the minds of people. And it begs to wonder what they're going to do when the last Holocaust survivor died. I mean, they've got to be up there in years now, in their 70s, even the youngest ones, have to be in their 70s.
Did you see what
80s.
Israel just had last week?
Oh, my God. Well,
Miss Holocaust, the Miss Holocaust contest?
Yeah, the Miss Holocaust.
I've never seen a more gruesome, morbid exhibition in my life. Like, this is beyond sick. What these people do.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It is beyond sick. Yeah, it grossed me out. I mean, I thought it was a joke, but I thought, well, you never joke about the Holocaust, so there's got to be some truth in this. And then I read past the headline, and sure enough, it was just disgusting. and at least a few had enough good sense. A few in the Jewish community had enough good sense to say, this is just really an embarrassing thing. We should not be doing this. But they did it nonetheless.
They can't help themselves.
No.
They can't help themselves.
Like I said,
so macabre.
Like I said, I've always wondered what's going to happen when the last Holocaust survivor dies. There's nobody going to be around to tell these stories anymore. And then I read this. I came across this article from September 2010 in Time magazine. It's called "Genetic Scars of the Holocaust. Children Suffer Too." Now, you get a load of this, Victor. The Holocaust is a crime that never seems to quit. Yeah, you think? That's just me there. Even as the ranks of survivors grow smaller each year, the impact of that dark passage in history continues to be felt. And it's not just the victims who feel the effects, it's their children, too. And I'll skip a paragraph. Over the years, a large body of work has been devoted to studying PTSD, which is a post-traumatic stress disorder, symptoms in second-generation survivors. And it has found signs of the condition in their behavior and even their blood, with higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol, for example. The assumption, a perfectly reasonable one, was always that these symptoms were essentially learned. Grow up with parents afflicted with the mood swings, irritability, jumpiness, and hyper vigilance, typical of PTSD, and you're likely to wind up stressed and high-strung yourself. So what they're telling us is they're setting the stage for us that we will always have Holocaust survivors.
It'll never end.
It'll never end, because once the real Holocaust survivors, the so-called Holocaust survivors, have died, it's going to live on their children and their grandchildren and their children after that. And mark my words, if we don't do the work to bash this and smash this myth completely, we are going to hear stories from the great-grandchildren of Holocaust survivors on the dreams that they have of being in the camps and the dreams they have of being shoveled. Yeah. I mean, I can just see it coming.
Absolutely,
so this is absolutely horrible. Well, we're coming up towards the end of our program, so I'm going to just let the next minute or two, if you could, give us a way that we can. Well, you kind of did that, but go ahead and tell us again how we can get your book. We got to get that out there to the people, and maybe say some closing statements, things that we may not have covered.
Yeah, they can go to 3 different places actually. wingtv.net. You can go to the Barnes Review, or you can go to AmericanFreePress.net. They all carry it, and also Amazon.com carries it. So 4 places you can find the book. It's not hard to find. And other than that, I appreciate being on this show. I'm glad Mark is running this network and making this airtime available for these kind of subjects, because, as I said in the beginning, Keith, everybody that is in this quote-unquote movement has to look in the mirror and ask themselves, why are we putting up with these gatekeepers that won't discuss this subject or anything else Jewish-related? Why do they only focus on minor league conspiracy and refuse to go into really the pivotal crux subjects? And, I guess if you're willing to settle for the minor leagues, that's where you'll always remain for your life. But, that's not good enough for me, and I know Mark and myself wrote a book on the USS Liberty, and Mark has also another one out there, but these are the kind of subjects that, everyone else is afraid to touch. So to me, that means even more so that we have to focus more attention on it, because the bigger the taboo, the more we need to expose the lies surrounding it.
That's right. And, it always amazes me. People in the truth movement or the patriot movement, they won't believe a word that the mainstream media tells them. They won't believe a word that comes out of, Jewish-controlled Hollywood. However, there's one thing that they buy hook, line, and sinker, and that's the official narrative on the Holocaust and World War II and Adolf history. And my advice to them, listen, if you don't know the true facts about it, then just leave it alone. Just don't even talk about World War II, the Holocaust, and Adolf Hitler, because you're only carrying the water for these people who you claim to be against. But anyway,
well, according to these big mouths, that it's still the Nazis that are running the world anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, the Nazis. My gosh. Well, Victor, can you hold on for just a minute after the program? I'm going to close it out here and just want to talk to you off air. But that's it for today's program, ladies and gentlemen. And next week, my special guest, hopefully, if things work out correctly, will be all the way from Saudi Arabia. Nasheed Abdul Khalik from Ascertain the Truth, and we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking a little bit more about this solidarity movement that needs to exist between Muslims and Christians, and even branch out from there to include all ethnic groups, including blacks, whites, and Hispanics, all people who have a common enemy and a common goal. So if you will please join me next week, I'd really much appreciate it. Until then, hope you have a great week, and celebrate 4th of July in the best way you can. See you next week. Okay.
Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Bashem Habashai Bahashim Wakar Kwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity. To the confusion of face brothers joined unto our ranks. To the hopefully elect, the Akwaf that are listening and learning around the world. To you I say Shalom. Disclaimer, we are the Hebrew Israelites by blood, according to the Bible, according to history, and according to relics. We are not associated with any black denominated organization or group, right? We quite simply are the Hebrew Israelites, okay? And some of our people were scattered to the four corners of the earth and are mixed up among the heathen. And in the last days, the Lord is going to pull our people out of the heathen. And some of our people actually look like the heathen. So this is not a color thing. This is a seed line, a family, a race of people. It has nothing to do with color. Color is an indicator, but not a definite. All right? And when you actually look at color, it has been used to create false social constructs like black and white. There is no such thing as black people. People are different shades of brown. And there is no such thing as white people, for they are different shades of red. All right? Hence the term redneck. It's not just their necks, it's their hands, their backs, their legs, their feet, their faces. They are the red people spoken of in the Bible. Who are the Edomites? Esau, Edom. So now that that's been said, we're going to get right into the lesson. We're going to talk about the hate crimes that you have not seen, and how false flags are used to push an agenda. All right, and as you can see in the title, it says Israel bombing Gaza while MSM, meaning mainstream media, focuses on synagogue shooting, ignoring Yemen genocide, Russian war. And they're not talking about the fact that it was a drill. It's in public record. I actually had a conversation with a Jewish doctor yesterday and brought it up, and all she could say is, well, that I don't believe it. You could put, you know, that you could put anything on the internet. I'm like, well, it's already in public record. It's already in the archives of history. And you actually have sound bites of rabbis from the synagogue that was attacked, saying how they had just completed a drill. And it also says in the record, when you look it up, and I suggest that you do, that the synagogue participated in the drill. So I just find it very ironic that, you know, we've seen no blood and gore from any images, anything, just what they say and what they. And so when you don't see the real-time phones and recordings that come out when events like that happen, and all you see is what the media puts up, and for what I've seen and what we've seen over and over again, that's generally a false flag. All right, and I do believe that this was yet another false flag event. I'm not saying that it is, but I do believe. I'm not saying that it definitely is, but I do believe that it is one. All right, but there are some incidents that happened where people really, hate crimes really did happen, and they're getting no media coverage because it was Esau killing Jacob. So let's let some of this play.
From the last 24 hours. So there's a lot going on today, from potential Russian war to false flag pipe bombs to even now a synagogue shooting as it's being hashtagged. And a lot of it, most of it, I would say, is trying to keep your attention away from what's really going on and driving you back to the voting box, as we've been saying in regard to all of these cases, be it the caravan, the pipe bombs, and now this shooting, whether or not it may or not be a false flag or a hoax or simply just being used to continue to do this. It's important that we think critically about all of this stuff and be willing to ask that question. Is this a false flag? Is this a psyop? but also not jump to conclusions and just calling it outright without having any of the facts, which is a lot of what we're seeing on both sides. Most people still, just holding on for dear life for this two-party deception, as we call it, continuing to point to one thing but failing to address the other. Look at this false flag pipe bomb thing, but look at how they're ignoring the caravan, or vice versa. Both of which, as I'm pretty damn convinced, and I will leave it up to you to make up your own mind, are largely being used, if not completely orchestrated, to keep you looking in the wrong direction. And
I agree with that. Either way it goes, I'm still trying to figure out the convoy thing. I don't, it could be to help put everything is really geared toward bringing that chip on, all the instability. But one thing it goes to show you that the media is like the title of this video. It says mainstream media, MSN. Media is the root word in media, and I mean that word media. It can be taken back to the word medium, all right, which is basically a witchcraft. And the media is used like witchcraft to brainwash and deceive the people by giving you false images, sleight of the hand, magician tricks, showing you one side and shaping your mind to form opinions that they want you to form, to make you believe what they want you to believe, and doing it in a fashion where you don't even realize it's being done. That's the power of it. This is Exodus 22:18. It says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." Period. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, because witchcraft is an abomination, man. And that's exactly what the media is. It's a form of witchcraft. All right? Because all they're doing is they're projecting false information to you. All right? This is Leviticus 19:31. "Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh, your power." All right? So when you're paying attention to and believing in the media, you're following after wizards, man. Because that's all these people are. They're magicians on the stage spinning tricks to you. And they fool masses of people, millions of people. Then, like he said, then you can go out to the polls and vote, which that's witchcraft in itself, because they're already choosing who they're going to elect. If you people haven't figured out that the voting process is all corrupt and just complete deception, then hey, that's on you.
Driving you with fear right back to the voting box to basically give your consent to yet again be governed by a group of criminals. Happens more times than we can count, and people still continue to buy the lies from these people who have been disproven, debunked, and shown to be outright liars more times than I can possibly count. But let's begin, before we get into the shooting today, as well as a quick rehash of the pipe bomb false flag, to what I think is one of the most important things happening today, two of which we'll cover today, and possibly end with a positive note to try to keep things looking upward, as we should be, recognizing that there is reasons to be happy and positive with all of the terrible things they're shoving down your throat. Sadly, a lot of which I cover as well, because it's the truth of what's going on and things they're trying to keep your attention away from. But there is good in the world, so don't forget that. First story that I want to touch on today, truly that I think is one of the most important, something that's getting completely obfuscated, and maybe that's the entire point. Interestingly, the synergy between a synagogue being shot and currently Gaza being bombed 87 times. Israel forces launch 87 overnight airstrikes against the Gaza Strip.
Which means, and guess who lives in the Gaza Strip? Women and children. Non-combatants. They launched 87 missiles into the Gaza Strip overnight. And they're boxed in. Basically, Gaza is like, you ever seen the movie Escape from New York or Escape from LA? It's like a city with giant walls around it. And so you're like in a giant prison and you can't get out. And they're bombing inside the walls. It's like dropping bombs inside of prison walls. Where can the inmates run to? This is Psalms 73:8. They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. All right. They set their mouths against the heavens, and their tongues walketh through the earth, and their mouths are set against the heaven, because they're running around in the land of Israel saying they're the people of the Lord, hiding behind anti-Semitism, a word which they created. All right, because when you try to you go to the Blue Letter Bible and you put in Semitic, guess what it's going to tell you when you do the word search? Every word in the Bible is numbered. All right, in the Strong's and the Blue Letter. And the one thing one of the words that you're not gonna find in there is immaculate. There is no immaculate conception, and you're not gonna find Semitic, because the man's name was Shem. It was Shemitic, and there are 8 Shemitic races, 8 of them. But when you use the word Semite, then you can't really connect that to anyone, and they can just claim that they're the only Semites and you're anti-Semitic. But there are 8 Shemitic families, and the Edomites are also Shemitic. All right.
Very, very interesting, and a big story. Something we've been seeing coming. People in the international community have been crying about, they're going to, or outcries about the fact that they're going to invade Gaza. This is going to happen, and people continue to ignore it. Innocent people, civilians, despite the fact that they continue to say that there's no one innocent in all of Gaza. Right? It's just the illegal, false state of Zionist Israel that gets all of the attention. Nothing to do with the innocent civilians being bombed and murdered and starved to death and raped and displaced on a regular basis.
And this is what Esau does, man. Let's read that again. Psalm 73:9. It said, they set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walketh through the earth. So they're, like I said, they're speaking against the heavens when they claim that they're the people of the Lord. And then their vibration, their tongue, their way walketh through the earth. Okay? And that's how they get mass people in America to agree with them. All right? Because if this isn't magic, you have the most aggressive, murderous people, all right, on the earth, all right, are the Israelis, the most aggressive and murderous people on the earth, but yet they also have the whole world, well, I won't say the whole world, but a good portion of the world, especially here in America, seeing them as the victim. So this is the person that hides their throw the rocks, but hide their hands, man. And I mean, it's just what it is. It isn't malicious. It isn't hate. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. Let's click to another video. All right. And let's see. Well, we got to suffer through the advertisement. We just turn the sound down. Oh, they'll let me skip. There we go.
Is in custody after a shooting at a Kroger grocery store outside of Louisville, Kentucky.
Just moments before the incident happened at Kroger, the suspect was seen at the First Baptist Church of Jeffersontown trying to get inside of that church, but he didn't get in.
He's like, whites don't kill whites.
He said what?
Whites don't kill whites.
Well,
that's what he said to the Edomites who were panicking when they saw him with the gun. Because he came in there, this as the guy's about to tell you, to kill Jakes, to kill 2 very brown, one light brown person and one medium brown person. They're gonna call them black though. We've already told you that's a social construct, all right, which is a lie. Okay, but he went to a church to try and so this actually happened, I think the day before or the day after the synagogue shooting, but it got no media coverage like the other. It's kind of been swept under the rug. I did see it for like 10 seconds of it, and that's been it. And they never said anything about it being a hate crime, which is exactly what it was. This guy tried to do it. I think his name was Dylan, the kid who went in there and shot up all the people in the church. This guy tried to do the same thing, and when he couldn't get into the church, he went to the Kroger grocery store and he found two Israelites and he shot them dead. A man and a woman, both with families.
was trending for eating a burrito, and conservatives were flooding your feed with conspiracy theories about the numerous pipe bombs sent to prominent Democrats.
See, even these Edomites know that that pipe bomb mess is all distraction, man. And one of the distractions was to distract away from what's going on in the Gaza Strip. The way they're over there murdering those Palestinians. Now, truth be said, those Palestinians don't belong there either. They're fitting the prophecy how the land was taken and divided by strangers. That's in the scriptures. The scripture says that Esau would appoint it to himself in the book of Ezekiel, around the 35th or the 36th chapter. And it tells you in the book of Joel that they parted the land of Israel, and it's parted between two people that don't belong there, and that's the Israeli Edomites and the Palestinians who are Ishmael. Neither one of them belong there. Facts.
In ways to deflect from the MAGA truck, this news was buried. It's a story of unimaginable hatred and ugliness, yet it was deemed less newsworthy. The story of an armed white man who tried to gain access to a black church, but failed, who then entered a supermarket and killed 2 black people.
Hey, and he didn't, he got taken alive. Just like the guy at the synagogue thing. I guess maybe if they were armed with cell phones or had their hands up, then they would have got shot the hell up 16 times each. But that's another thing that makes me believe that this was a complete and total false flag, because cops don't take kindly to getting shot, whether it be by somebody else or another white guy. Also, a statistical fact I thought I'd throw in there: 71% of white police officers, so-called white, that are killed in the line of duty are killed by other so-called white men. That's an FBI statistical fact. You can look it up for yourself. But nevertheless, cops don't take kindly to cop killers, man. They'll get rid of all the cameras in the area and shoot up every goddamn thing. So you mean to tell me this man gets to shoot Jewish people in a synagogue and shoot 3 cops and then get taken alive? You believe that bullshit? Not an American police officer. I don't know what you... Shoot, you even look at them wrong, man, they blasting you. Okay? Real talk. This is Psalms 73 and 5. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore, pride compasses them about as a chain. They wear it like bling bling, man. Like 2 chains. They got a prideful chain, the invisible prideful chain just wearing around their neck. And it says, violence covereth them as a garment. And they are just some violent people. Constantly shooting and killing and murdering people, going to schools and shooting up kids. That was also a school shooting that just happened. That person got taken alive too, if I'm not mistaken. Okay? And all these things are done by Edomite men. When are you going to realize that Edomite men are the problem with violence here in America? Even some sister brought out statistics show you that they commit most of the crimes, but you never know that watching the media. Mainstream media is always going to paint Jake to be the worst thing in America, and that's so far from the truth, man.
With a prior history of hatred towards black people, shot these 2 innocent citizens, only to then tell a bystander who approached him, "Don't shoot, whites don't kill whites."
So just in case the guy was ready to stand his ground, he reminded his Edomite brother, "Hey, we don't kill each other. I just did a good thing. I just killed a couple niggers."
Police arrived and, of course, peacefully took the shooter into custody. This is news that gets...
And they took him into custody. All right? 12-year-old Jake gets shot down on the playground playing with a toy gun. Jake gets shot in the car with his hands up. Shot outside the car with his hands up. Shot in the back where he's on the ground with his hands behind his back. Hung from trees. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And these men can walk around with fully automatic weapons, shoot up every goddamn thing, and then get taken alive? Are you serious?
Buried. The victims were Maurice Stallard and Vicky Jones.
Now look at these people. Let's go. Let me click back. Let's look at these 2 people.
This is news that gets buried. The victims were Maurice...
Yeah, he said news that gets buried, man. All right? That man is reddish brown. He's ruddy. All right? And not youthful ruddy. but his skin is reddish brown. The true definition of ruddy, not the revised newspeak one. All right?
Alad and Vicky Jones.
So is Vicky. Vicky's another light shade of brown, a medium shade of brown. All right? And she's wearing a black strap. Looks like a chrome bag, the messenger bag, chrome bag, because it has a seatbelt clip. I actually own one of those bags. Oh, no, she's got an arm in a sling, so that's what that is, okay? But nevertheless, it's black. Her skin is nowhere near the color you see of the cursor arrow. The difference between this black and her skin is day and freaking night. And the white arrow. So you got all three things, man. No one's the color of that arrow. No one's the color of the black strap on her. And she's brown. She's not a black woman. She's a brown woman. And she's an Israelite woman. And she's dead. Which means that was, you know, part of her judgment. The Lord allowed that to happen. Isaiah 45:7. Go read it. But nevertheless, you know, even when the 2/3 get put to death, man, he's still going to punish you heathen for putting your hands on them, because they're still the apple of his eye.
Starlord was killed in front of his 12-year-old grandson.
Wow.
Vicky Jones just recently retired from the VA hospital. She spent her time helping veterans. And on that subject, let's take a closer look at this despicable human being who took her life's profile picture. I stand, huh? Stand for what exactly? Okay, so there is a...
He stands for his murderous flag, his murderous country. Then you wonder why Kaepernick doesn't want to take a knee to it. All right? And quit pretending like the third verse of the Star Spangled Banner doesn't exist, man. The third verse of the Star Spangled Banner, all right, incites violence against Negroes to kill them. And that they should always be perpetual slaves and never be free and always be hated. Roughly paraphrased. That's what it does. Okay? This is Psalms 94:20, and it reads, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law?" We can get no remedy here in America, no matter what. There's no amount of protesting, no amount of walking up and down the street with signs. That is not going to do it. All right? And pretty soon, the way those two die, Esau's going to unleash his sword on you. All right? And kill us and start killing our people by the thousands, man. By the hundreds and by the thousands. It's coming. Okay? There's a scene from American Gods, all right, where one of the gods is played by Orlando Bloom, I believe his name is. The dude, because he's an Israelite, but I think his mother is an Edomite. Let's see if it's still queued up. Here we go.
Once upon a time, a man got fucked. That's the story of black people in America.
So you notice he's in a suit on a slave ship talking to slaves, explaining to them what's about to happen to them. And they're like, what the hell, what are you, black? What the fuck is black? They've never heard of that because it hadn't been really created yet.
Shit, you all don't know you black yet.
See?
You think you just people. Let me be the first to tell you that you are all black. The moment these Dutch motherfuckers set foot here and decided they white.
And decided they're white. In the year 1681 in Virginia, the first time ever in law, any place in the world where there was a classification of people with the racial makeup being referred to as white. They created it themselves. And they labeled you black. Black meaning void of light and stupid and dumb and darkness and evil and gloomy. And white meaning pure and wonderful and clean. That's why they did that. And the thing that pisses me off the most is that some of you dumb ass niggas, excuse my French, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not. Still cling to that madness. With that, I hope this was an edifying lesson. Call halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Nabashai Ba'Shem Rakak Wadash Wa Abad Babal.
Well, there's definitely a lot going on to distract everyone from many of the important things going on today. Something that is worth discussing, something that's relevant, but is clearly being used to grab the attention of all the people with their emotionally, mind you. And this is definitely Donald Trump's discussion of the caravan and, things that were important to point out, such as saying that they're open to shooting people on the border if they throw rocks, which is eerily reminiscent to what we're seeing in Israel, putting people in tents. Nonetheless, this aligns with everything else we've been saying about the Trump administration and the U.S. oligarchy in general, whatever puppet is put in place, and things that we've already said about the caravan thus far. And sadly, almost the entirety of the independent media and mainstream media alike are consumed with discussing this caravan and Don Lemon's comments on CNN, and just all. It seems frustratingly so that too many people, including the independent media, are being wrapped up into these mainstream talking points, even if we're trying to explain them in our own way. Even myself, in regard to things like Khashoggi or any of all other topics we're getting into today. It seems like too many of us are getting wrapped up into their talking points, and that's something we have to consider to be sure that we don't just continue to fall down these discussions that they create for us. Now, there's a lot of important things to talk about today that are not being discussed because they're being overshadowed by so many of the things I just mentioned. But before I jump into it, I want to point out that I just put up an excellent interview with Whitney Webb from Mint Press News that I highly recommend you check out in regard to Yemen and what's going on there, as well as I just recorded an interview this morning with Pamela Bennett, who was the woman who was carrying on a hunger strike to draw attention to what's really going on in Yemen. That will likely be up tomorrow. Both of them are fantastic, lots of great information about the sad reality of what our government, if you're an American, is allowing to take place in Yemen while they're trying to distract you with so many other things and motivate you to get out there and vote. Now, the first story of the day, something that I think is incredibly important, is not necessarily, obviously Yemen, you guys know, is something that's very important to me because it is easily the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, possibly the worst ever, when we're talking about potentially 18.4 or more million people starving to death. That's staggering. But this story is about the U.S. all of a sudden deciding to say we need to stop what's going on here, which seems like a good thing. Depends on if they're actually genuine in what they're doing. Nonetheless, it's important to point out that because of all of our tireless efforts, all of you in the chat, everyone in the independent media that's been forcing this point, making the mainstream media talk about it in the fleeting moments that it has, forcing the politicians to do their job, this is why we see things like this. Now, it's important that we follow up and make sure that something does change. Sadly, I don't think this is going to happen. This coming from Al Jazeera, of all places. U.S. Defense Chief demands Yemen ceasefire. Peace talks in 30 days? Interesting. Well, it's also important to note that in 30 days, we'll likely see tens of thousands of more people murdered by the U.S.-backed Saudi coalition airstrikes, starvation tactics, collar efforts, and all the other things they're doing to these people. But let's just wait 30 days. The frustrating part in all of this is that if they truly, as Whitney Webb said in our interview, if they truly wanted to stop this, they could simply stop it. It's that simple. Their efforts, the UK and the United States combined, are what is allowing this to continue. They're talking about peace talks around the table with the groups that they're funding, arming, and pushing to drive and pointing to the places on a map. This is a play for people that don't understand what their real dynamic is at play. Honestly, this is more than anything could very well be Mattis trying to stop them from doing what they're making him do, if you want to look at it that way. Sadly, I think all of them are as equally complicit in this whole horrible story. Now, top American officials did in fact call for a ceasefire in Yemen and demanded warring parties immediately come to the negotiating table, which is something that frustrates me. Knowing that we know well what they want to do. Saudi Arabia is very apparent, has spoken out about what they want to do, very similar to the way Israel against the Palestinians. They want them gone. They don't want a deal. They don't want a two-state solution. Same thing with the Yemenis. They want them gone. Ethnic cleansing is what they're trying to accomplish. So coming to a negotiating table between groups that have no desire to negotiate doesn't make sense, but they know this. And I see this as a ploy to make people think something's going to happen until they can distract you with yet another story, some more false bombs or another caravan or whatever story they want to drive into your consciousness. Now, the comments came as the Saudi Emirati-led military coalition deployed, interestingly, more than 10,000 new troops, which we just spoke on. It's literally while they're deploying 10,000 more people. This is the U.S.-backed coalition. They're now discussing ideas of ceasefire. Very contradictory. Now, James Mattis, the Pentagon chief, said that the U.S. had been watching the conflict for long enough, adding he believes Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, who are in a U.S.-backed coalition, which you all are well aware, are ready for talks, which is literally the opposite of what they've been saying, but apparently he knows better. Now he says, quote, "We have got to move toward a peace effort here, and we can't say we are going to do it for some time in the future." And he says, yeah, and we can't say we are going to do it in some time in the future, which is a very weird comment. And this is Mattis speaking on. He says, we need to be doing this in the next 30 days, which is essentially a very loose time limit. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo later called on the coalition to stop air attacks in populated areas in Yemen. The absurdity of that statement is knowing that the United States, Pompeo, Mattis, all included, are the ones helping pick the points on the map that they're bombing, while supplying them with the weapons. So to call for them to stop their bombing is like he's asking himself to stop bombing. It's really that ludicrous when you understand the dynamics at play here. And the whole point of this is good. To see them speaking like this shows that we're making a difference, that we're forcing their hand on something they don't want to stop. I don't think they're going to do anything until they get what they want in Yemen, just like they've demonstrated in a number of other countries that they burned to the ground in the effort to do what they wanted under the guise of humanitarianism. But as if to really sell that point, literally just before I was about to go live, I get a tweet from Hussein al-Bukaidi on the ground in Yemen, which reads, "Breaking news, heavy Saudi UAE bombardment on Sana'a at this moment. More than 20 strikes, most of it on Sana'a airport. This is the USA ceasefire in 30 days? It starts from today. I can still hear coalition fighter jets in the sky in the capital of Yemen." So, I mean, this just as if we need any more evidence that they're calling for ceasefire, and saying that the Saudis and UAE are ready to talk. And it's almost just as bad as when they announced that they were backing the Saudis, and that very day they bombed a bus full of children. It's almost as bad. They're saying they're ready for talks, and they're literally this very moment over 20 airstrikes in Sana'a airport, bombing civilians. We can't continue to allow these people to get away with these blatant lies, telling us one thing while doing another, and they will just wait for some other story to force into your consciousness. And again, as I said, sadly, so many people are just waiting for the next ridiculous two-party deception talking point, for them to divide against party lines, argue with each other. It's the new form of entertainment today. And sadly, we need to keep forcing this into the talking points to make sure that the people of Yemen don't get murdered. Every single one of them, 18.4 or more. More than a third, it's more than half, as I understand it, of the entire population that is currently, at this moment, on the verge of starvation. And think about how that's only going to increase with everything that continues for 30 more days, if at all. Just keep that in mind. Now, it's important for us to understand the reality, and if we can see they're continuing to bomb, then we know that all of this ready to come to the table for talks discussion is a complete fallacy. But I think most of you that are watching this show on a regular basis are well aware of that by now. And of course, all the lies of it, it's all about Iran, right? It's all about Iran being there, which we know is also a fallacy. But in related story coming from Medium as well, from Caitlin Johnstone, who I always enjoy her work. This one entitled, "U.S. blames Iran for impoverishing citizens while prepping further sanctions." And this is a story that we've touched on quite a bit, but I like some of the points that she drew out here.
But this discussion it's literally as ridiculous as realizing that they are passing sanctions on a population that hurt their economy, that hurt the civilian population, then turn around and say, look at how much the civilian population is suffering. We need to do more sanctions. That is literally as ridiculous as you breaking it down. It's that simple. And this is what we're looking at. And they're going to continue to do so. The United States is preparing at this moment to implement an additional level of sanctions against Iran for its refusal to meet a dozen demands that are absurdly unreasonable. And it's basically tantamount to a regime change policy as they continue to pretend that's not what they're after, despite people like Pompeo and Bolton openly saying as much numerous times. Now, the sanctions which have already been implemented have already badly hurt the Iranian economy, the sting of which is being felt first and foremost by the Iranian people, the poor, the sickly. Again, very similar to what we're seeing in Yemen. These ideas of humanitarian efforts to save the people, but first they need to kill and hurt the people to make sure they can come in and help the people. That's what they want you to believe. And of course, who is the U.S. government blaming for all of the consequences of their economic warfare? Of course, the Iranian government, because that makes sense. Now imagine if the U.S. government, as Caitlin points out perfectly, had listed 12 ridiculous extreme demands of Tehran, and then when those demands weren't met, they decided to launch a few dozen Tomahawk missiles into an Iranian suburb. And imagine, if you will, what the response would be if Secretary Pompeo had then issued a tweet saying, boy, it sure was awful of the Iranian regime to launch those missiles at its own civilians. He would never do that because nobody would buy it. But for some weird, entirely narrative-based reason, the U.S. government can get away with killing the same number of civilians by depriving them of food and medicine and say it's the Iranians' fault for not bowing to Washington's demands. It's that simple. These claims of Iran being the world's leader of terrorism, or whatever the phrase they use, is patently false. And I'm not saying Iran is not the bastion of freedom and the best country in the world, but the reality is there's no evidence to back up the claims that they're putting forward while they're literally carrying out some of the worst human rights violations and war crimes in modern time, in living memory. Just think about the contradiction there. And then literally justifying further action by pointing to the things that they just created. This is the U.S. oligarchy that we're giving our tax dollars to. Now, in another story coming from MiddleEastMonitor.com, another important story in regard to Iran, this is entitled, Iran accuses Israel of false flag operation in Denmark, assassination plot. Now, this is an interesting story, mildly related only because it's Iran, but I found this to be interesting in regard to the little trifecta of human rights violations, or however you want to call it, of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. This in regard to Israel trying to demonize Iran in Denmark, if you take them at their word. Now, an alleged Iranian murder plot in Denmark to kill a political dissident has been swept aside by the country's foreign minister, Javad Zarif, as a, quote, false flag operation carried out by Israeli Mossad. The remark was made by Zarif in relation to the uncovering of a murder plot by Sweden's intelligence agencies in September. They blamed Tehran for the foiled plot to assassinate an Iranian dissident on Danish soil. Following the discovery of the plot, there was a massive police operation in which Denmark shut down streets and bridges nationwide. So it was a pretty big event. Now, Israel apparently provided information that led to the foiling of the assassination. Now, Mossad is reported to have passed intelligence information to the authorities in Copenhagen that led to this arrest, and apparently of 2 Iranian nationals who were believed to have been preparing explosive devices for the assassination, per the Israeli information. Now, news of Israel's involvement in foiling the attack prompted Zarif to state that the attack was actually a false flag carried out by Israel, and that there would be more in this later, which is likely to be an indication that he has more evidence to provide on these allegations. Now, he quote in a tweet he put out saying, Mossad's perverse and stubborn planting of false flags, more on this later, only strengthens our resolve to engage constructively with the world. This according to Zarif. Now, like we always recommend, you should never take one word over another. They all have their agendas. But with the history of Israel and doing exactly this, it's easy to, you'd probably likely know what my opinion would be, but we can't take any of them at face value. But they have a strong history of doing exactly this kind of thing, and we know. And look at what he has done so far. Netanyahu has numerous times stood up in front of the world and blatantly lied about Iran, presenting false evidence, manipulating opinions, verifiably so by the international community. And now another thing like this happens, it seems very likely that they would carry it out in order to continue to demonize Iran for all of their efforts in Yemen, in Syria, in Iran, point blank. This is exactly what they're trying to accomplish. Now, in another story coming from MiddleEastEye.com, this one in regard to Saudi Arabia, entitled, U.S. Senators Call on Trump to Suspend Nuclear Agreement Talks with Riyadh, with Saudi Arabia. Now, again, this is an interesting development, understanding that this is the U.S. senators are standing up and saying these things, sadly, largely because of Khashoggi, ignoring tens of thousands of innocent women and children dying. But, of course, one Washington Post writer, he then, of course, we must do something, right? But nonetheless, the fact that they're doing this is just another sign that we are making progress, that we are getting enough people to pay attention to what's really going on in Yemen and the horrible, atrocious human rights record of Saudi Arabia, and the fact that the United States directly backs them, regardless of that, which is staggering to me that that's not the biggest story of the year. But the fact that they're standing up and saying that they need to end this is important. But even more so, many people aren't even likely aware that Trump is discussing a nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia. Think about that, with Saudi Arabia. And while the entire premise of Iran is now they can't have nuclear weapons, but let's take the world's leading human rights violator and war crimes committer that currently behead people in the town square and crucify people and hang them in front of the city. Yes, let's give them the ability to make nuclear weapons because they're a U.S. ally. That seems like a little bit more important topic, but together this whole story is very interesting. Now, 5 Republican U.S. senators have called on President Donald Trump to suspend talks to reach a civilian nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia over the recent killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Now, you could also clearly argue that they already have access to and use of nuclear material and even nuclear weapons, largely because of Israel's cooperation with them. But maybe this is just a way to cover for that already developing program. But either way, the fact that it's trying to legitimize their use of this should be very alarming to us. No one can deny the very atrocious record of Saudi Arabia. So why would they be okay and not Iran? It doesn't make sense. Intellectually, it does not make sense. Now, in a letter sent to the president on Wednesday, the politicians said that they have been concerned by Riyadh's ongoing refusal to adopt policies and technologies that limit the enrichment of uranium and reprocessed plutonium, among other nuclear. Verifiably doing these things can just because we say so. Now, the killing of Khashoggi, as you are well aware, a prominent Washington Post columnist on October 2nd, at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, raises even more questions about the current thinking of Saudi decision makers. This is what they're claiming. The senators have said they would block any agreement at this time in light of their concerns. Again, sad that they can't make this decision after all of the people that have been killed in much more larger numbers, but one person, so be it. Now, Trump has been under increasing pressure to hold Saudi Arabia and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, in particular, accountable for the death of Khashoggi. Now, asked on Wednesday if he believed the Saudis had betrayed him in relation to the Khashoggi case, Trump responded, "They haven't betrayed me. Maybe they've betrayed themselves." What an interesting thing to say. And he says, "We'll have to wait and see how this all turns out." Well, I'm sorry to inform you, Mr. President, but the reality is we're well aware of what happened here. The information is in. They murdered him, they chopped him up, apparently strangled him at the door, and then got rid of his body, and lied about it the whole way. But let's wait and see how this all turns out, is what we're supposed to take away from this. The ridiculous system of them continuing to pretend like this is a developing story, like we have to wait and see how it all pans out, is just a way to keep you from paying attention while they let the story die out. They murdered him. They got rid of his body. They lied about it. And they're using their powerful allies as cover while nothing ultimately happens. Maybe the worst will be a switching of power, where MBS steps aside and some new person steps in, and it's business as usual. And while they continue to make agreements about a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. it's just, this stuff is almost comical today to see how ridiculous. If you're really paying attention, this stuff is absolutely absurd. And hopefully you are. Now another story coming from South Front, this one entitled, Syrian Army Uncovers Tons of U.S. Supplied Ammunition in Southern Deir ez-Zor. Well, many of you are not surprised by this. This is something we've talked about many, many times. But the point here, over and over, and these are the stories that people just kind of shrug off and go, well, we've seen this before, but this is to realize that massive amounts of U.S.-made ammunition is being used by ISIS in their territory is profound, regardless of how many times it comes up. And they just want you to pay attention to something else. But the amount that we're seeing here is staggering. Now, the Syrian Arab Army today actually uncovered this large amount it's a depot containing apparently 450,000 bullets during a search operation around the city of Al-Mayadeen in the southern Deir ez-Zor countryside. Now, the Sanaz reporter in Deir ez-Zor said that the bullets, which had been left behind by ISIS fighters, were all supplied by the U.S. Experts confirm that the bullets are, in fact, from the 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO caliber. The U.S.-backed Free Syrian Army had used several rifles that are chambered in this caliber, such as the German Heckler and the Koch G3 and the Belgian FN FAL. Now, ISIS likely bought these U.S.-supplied bullets directly from FSA. Earlier this year, a detailed report by the Conflict Armament Research, CAR, revealed how ISIS fighters in Iraq were able to obtain anti-tank guided missiles only a few weeks after the U.S. had supplied them to the FSA in Syria. Now, the real question is whether this was the plan all along. Regardless, all of these claims of trying to fight the extremists, as we can routinely show you that's literally the opposite of what they're doing. Instead, they're funding these groups and allowing them to continue to fight their enemies. That should be a big story, but I guess we'll continue to focus on caravans and Don Lemon and all the things that they're trying to force down your throat. Now, the last story of the day that's also very important, that's in the very same vein, from RT, entitled, Terrorists May Have Benefited from Millions Worth of U.S. Aid for Iraq and Syria. Again, really talking about U.S. tax dollars, your dollars, going towards funding terrorism. Yeah, many of you are probably like, yeah, we knew that already. But the truth is that most people don't. And now we're seeing that almost $1 billion that was supposed to go to helping people overseas, apparently, and despite the fact that Iraq and Syria are created by the U.S. interventionism, but we'll forget about that for the moment. Well, the money they put there, apparently most of it would end up in the hands of terrorists. So a recent USAID audit report found that some of its humanitarian programs for war-torn Syria and Iraq might have assisted terrorist groups. The assistance in question amounts to nearly $700 million. The official USAID Office of Inspector General found that the agency in charge of foreign aid provided by Washington has done a poor job to mitigate risks for its projects to end up in the wrong hands. The paper, highlighting the risk of terrorists benefiting from the U.S. foreign assistance, among other vulnerabilities, was published on September 25th, which nobody probably really heard of. Now, out of 19 cases, only in 6 did U.S. aid employees follow the guidance with due diligence, they say. The other 13 potentially risky assistance projects amounted to $697 million. The U.S. has been involved in the military campaign in Iraq and Syria for years, which we all know, with the stated goal to halt the rise of Islamic State terrorists. On Syrian soil, it's been done without any okay from Damascus. We know this. It's an illegal invasion, which it amounts to a breach of their sovereignty. But again, it doesn't really matter because they're fighting the terrorists. Now, Washington has also supported its moderate rebels in Syria with weapons and much, much more. Now, some of the arms clearly ended up in the hands of terrorists. Now, whether that was the plan to begin with, again, is becoming more and more likely with all the information we're seeing. And that's just to be, to not be, my opinion. I mean, clearly I think the evidence here is blatant, but nobody can know for sure. Now, in 2016, Jabhat al-Nusra unit commander Abu al-Aziz said that they point blank received American support through third countries. Moreover, the militants received tow missiles directly from the U.S., he revealed. Damascus itself has accused Washington point blank of arming terrorists, which I think it should be basically a foregone conclusion at this point, just depending on what your definition of terrorist is today. Now, Syrian diplomat Al-Asad bin Hamdan said in September that, quote, hundreds of tons of weapons were transported to end up in terrorist hands in southern Syria. Now, all of this stuff, a lot of the stories today are things that you watch this channel, you're probably, like, I generally knew that kind of stuff. But these are tangible evidence points. Very clearly, we can see that this is what happened. And people today seem so aggressively consumed with conjecture and hypothetical discussion points that they just know this is what's happening because the Democrats or the Republicans just aggressively fighting that side. And I think that is our biggest problem today, is people are getting so wrapped back up in the two-party politics. And I really hope people can begin to see past that. And if any of you watching this channel that are dedicated followers of this channel, if you want to do any one thing to make a change today, get out there and try to fight people away in a, shouldn't say fight, fight away in a non-physical way, people away from the two-party deception. Open their eyes to the reality that they both lead down the same path. And that is the way they get us fighting amongst ourselves. It's something that I've been fighting for a long time, but I feel lately that it seems to be getting worse. Even people that see themselves outside of it are getting pulled back in due to these discussion points. So do your best to fight against that. Now make sure you check out my interview with Whitney Webb, which is full of a lot of good information. I'll make sure and put the new one up tomorrow. I won't do an R&R today because I'm getting ready for a show with B. Rich. I'll be on B. Rich's channel tonight in a couple hours, I believe, so make sure and check that out. And as always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.